Here we go.
G'day fans and welcome back to another exciting Wednesday night for Rip It Off the Card. For the past few months, all we've been doing, Aaron and I, is bitching about how cold and freezing it is. Now tonight it's 101,000 million degrees outside. We're both basting in our own juices. Yeah, that's an image that's not going to leave you in a hurry. What do you reckon, Mr. Aaron? It's one of those very exciting evenings.
And our viewership just went down. Yes, it's like it's pretty steamy in here tonight. It was hot in the shop. The air conditioner was full ball, but because we have the door open, it does nothing. So yeah, it's been a pretty warm one.
Mate, I like it when you say it's been steaming in his room, and it's nothing to do with the heat. So yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. I like this one from Greg King. He's halfway through Andor and he's paused to watch us. Greg, what is wrong with you, dude? You don't pause Andor to watch us. You just don't watch Andor at all. You just watch us from the outside. But yes, episode 10 is on tonight, and it's all very, very exciting. Only 3 episodes left of that. So if you've been watching our DNA reviews, hopefully you've been getting some enjoyment out of that. But we got a big showtime, Mr. Aaron. Aside from the super hot temperature outside, we're going to be heating things up in here. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a long show. It's a big show tonight, isn't it? It's a big long one. We've got lots of news, lots of fun, and fantastic main feature, I think, for anyone who grew up in the 70s and 80s.
Dude, don't, when you say big long one, stop talking about what's in your underpants. I tell you what. It's hot. I'm allowed to say it, all right? Cut me some slack. All right. Even Guy said, yes, it's hot, hot, hot. So there you go. Mr. Diggo's joined us. That's very good. We'll just stop right there. So Mr. Diggo's joined us, which is absolutely fantastic. And Colin is with us as well, which is important because we're going to be talking about you, Colin, later on. And make sure you stick around for everybody who's watching for at least after the eBay segment. I mean, watch the whole show, obviously. But if you're going to bail, like Greg will, to watch the rest of Andor, at least stick around to the end of the eBay segment because we've got something very special to announce. Very, very good. What's it good? Aaron's collectible sauna. Oh, yes. That's a good marketing gimmick for you. What do you reckon, dude?
Hot and sweaty come in and lose some weight because I'll help you I'll sawn a leg off or sawn an arm off.
Very, very good. I love the sound of that. All right, let us kick things off. Otherwise, we'll never get stuff done. It's time for a bit of this. So, Mr. Aaron, we're talking about some collectibles tonight, and you've got a whole range of really groovy stuff that's apparently coming out.
Yep, there's some high-end stuff, and it's good to see the current Doctor introducing the segment, isn't it?
What?
David Tennant's the Doctor again. Let's move on.
I thought you were talking about this guy.
No, sorry, I should have said the current Docky is introducing this.
So this guy will say, I'll buy that TARDIS for $1. Yes, very, very good. All right, so we're going to kick off with a bit of Star Wars, mate.
Well, unfortunately, tonight he's going to get nothing for $1 because we're looking at some pretty premium stuff. But I have to say this is a very sexy collectible. For anyone who likes the Empire and likes their hardware, this is one of the better designed droids, I thought. It was cool because it floated, but you couldn't see how it floated, which always made it a bit special for me. They've brought out different versions. You can see the one in the middle there, well, the one next to the Apple is the 1/6 scale one, which is in scale with the Hot Toys. The premium format one they're just bringing out is the biggest droid this version of this droid they've released yet. So it's quite a substantial one. And I think it's a fantastic piece. I mean, it is one of those pieces I would consider buying myself and keeping as a collectible because I think it's such a cool item. What did you think when I sent you this one, Dags?
Oh, I like it. The only thing I don't get, and I'm just going to go back a picture, is why the rod in the middle isn't transparent. I would have thought they would have put a transparent rod to make it look like it's floating. Having the stick holding it up is probably about the weakest thing. But the way it looks, yes, absolutely spectacular. So, I mean, all things being equal, it's not the prettiest looking droid in the world. But if you like this sort of thing, and yeah, why not?
Yeah, I think if you come into the shop every second week, you can have the real rod hold it up for you.
Very, very good. I like this one from Rusky Babes. Yeah, Apple product placement. Very, very good. That's actually very clever. Yes. So, yeah. But as you saw from the photographs earlier, it looked really, really cool. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's very exciting stuff.
It's got light up electronics as well. And when you see it in that sort of room situation, it looks about as big as a lamp. So how's that for a super cool, nerdy lamp for you? I mean, that's better than any other reading lamp, isn't it?
Well, that's true. In fact, if you're wondering what that is, that's the base of operations. Very, very good. There's a really nice picture of it coming up in a second where it's actually placed as a table lamp inside an apartment. I mean, I've got to admit, that kind of looks good and stupid at the same, at the same time.
For people who are into Star Wars, they go a probe droid lamp, amazing. For anyone else, they're like, "What's the hell with the lamp? What's all the legs at the bottom? Is it meant to hold pens or something?" You know?
Yeah. I mean, someone thought, put it there, it'll look great in the photo, and it does look good in the photo, but it does look completely out of place at the same time. I mean, the rest of the apartment is all modern and, contemporary, and they've got this Star Wars thing in the center. It
Well,
looks a bit weird.
the thing that Icon or whoever has advertised this and not take Sideshow are not taking into account, if that was a true collector's room, it would be covered wall to wall with Star Wars stuff. It wouldn't be some trendy looking apartment with one tasteful Star Wars item, would it? Let's face
Yep.
it, no one does that.
Yep, no, totally agree with you. It would just that's just kind of weird. Unless you're trying to use the old Spankins guide to slipping it in and you stick it in. Hopefully the other half goes, that's an interesting looking lamp. And you go, oh yeah, it's the latest trendy design. Absolutely fantastic. No Star Wars here.
Yeah.
Dear.
So,
You are right, Gavin. Careful that it doesn't self-destruct. That would be funny. You turn it on and just go when you go, or when it's not working properly and you whack it and it blows up. I didn't hit it that hard. It must have self-destructed.
yeah, that is pretty cool. So it's
Yep.
going to be pretty hard to beat that with the next items we're looking at. But we've got some cool items tonight. What did you think of this next batch?
I'm going to get those. I'm waiting to get in. So the probe droid, the big one, what do you reckon that's going to be? Cost?
I'd say it's a premium format. So between, I guess, 1,000 and 1,500, maybe up to 2,000. Some of the premium stuff is going for a lot just because of the import at the moment. I mean, the last premium format we ordered in for a customer was 1999. That was a Deja Thoris from John Carter of Mars, though, which was a lot sexier than the probe droid.
Wow, a couple of grand. Jesus Christ. You could buy a real probe droid from the Empire for that. Yeah, so all right, the next batch that are coming up, they're sort of all in skips. There's different ranges of things going on, but once again, it's the photography that sells it, right? Whoever's photographing these things is doing a fantastic job. Good old Book of Boba Fett droids, mate. Lots of them.
Well, this is interesting. I really like this, how one droid is good, but 3 droids is awesome. And Hot Toys are doing a droid pack that you can add to your Book of Boba Fett collection. They're doing R5D4, a pit droid, or Curly as we lovingly call him in the shop, and BD72 or 72. So you can get a few of them and add them together like this and have your own pit droid party. There ain't no party like a pit droid party. That's what I've heard. And then you've got R5D4. You've got to be very careful with the R5D4 because they often send them out with a faulty motivator. But you've got the pit droids to help prepare him. And I mean, they do a good job, even though they do the Harry, Curly, and Mo sort of routine. But I do think this is quite an amazing set. But you are 100%, maybe even 1,000% right that the backgrounds in the pictures really sell this set, don't they?
Yeah, and as you've said, and I totally agree with you, there'll be people who buy these things thinking, oh, they look awesome, put them on their bookshelves, and they go, look, how come they don't look anything like they do in the photographs? It's because the photographs got all the fancy backgrounds. But
Yeah, and they really have pulled out all stops on the backgrounds with these. They have in the past sold different backgrounds for Hot Toys and things of this scale. They've done like Cantina alcoves and Millennium Falcon cockpits and things like that. This one just has some really cool stuff in the background, but I think it was all custom made or even photoshopped in. I'm not 100% sure. But they are very cool droids. They have that sort of Star Wars used look. And if you've got some figures you want to add them to, I think this is a cool set. I think this is good because often you don't get a 3-pack and they all sort of are themed. And look, instantly by putting him in the picture, you've got your Grogu bucks coming in, haven't you?
Absolutely. There's a comment that came through. I didn't get it at first, but then I did get it. Hang on, I'm going to start here. As Daniel Moneybag Sullivan said, he wanted BT72, which is one of the dicky ones earlier. William said, BD, where's SM? And Rusty Babes got it. So, yes. Very, very clever. Yes, very good. I mean, of the things, I think the BD is probably the weakest of the lot, but and I wouldn't go for a Curly myself, the pit droid, but the R5D4 I think is kind of cool because it obviously appeared in the A New Hope. So yeah, very good.
Yeah. So if you are a New Hope fan, you can buy this set and turf the other 2 or sell them on the secondary market, get half your money back and just keep the R5D4.
Love the sound of that. And guess what? Now, back up here, there's a comment made earlier. I've lost it. Oh, here we go. Rusky Babe said Star Wars, boo. Well, there you go. We're finished with the Star Wars stuff, which is particularly cool. So we got that out of the way. Now we're going to go in a completely different direction. And we're going to come up with some wonderful merchandise. And once again, it's the pictures that make it all worthwhile. We are going for a bit of Groot action. Is that right, Mr. Aaron?
We are, and this one, well, when you put them together like that, it almost looks something out of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory's chocolate room, doesn't it? That's pretty amazing. I mean, the eye candy on this one is incredible, and this is a hot toy as well, and they've gone for Baby Groot. It's not the one in the pop plant, it's the one from the new Disney shorts where they've got the younger version of Groot running around getting up to all kinds of mischief. But I have to admit, I might have a hard, evil heart, but this one kind of does appeal to me in a strange way. You do get all these extra leaves and growth and tree parts that you can add onto it so you can have different versions of Groot. And he is fully posable. And I've got to say, some of the reclining poses and stuff, you cannot see the joints. It looks pretty amazing. He does come with his pajamas and things like that. I think he does come with the drawing as well. So you get quite a lot with this one. It's from the I Am Groot Disney version. Now that's the bubble version of Groot. Now that's pretty incredible to include this as an extra with one of the hot toys. So this is why I'm highlighting this one, because I know we look a lot at hot toys and you could do a whole show or a whole news section just on all the hot toys that come out. But I did think this one was a cut above what they have been releasing if you love Guardians of the Galaxy and particularly the Groot character. What did you think, Dags?
Oh, it's very impressive. I'm assuming it's got different heads for the different expressions, but yeah, that looks straight like it's walked straight off the screen. Yeah.
So sometimes they have different heads, or sometimes they have just a different mouthpiece that you can sort of pull on and off, and it has a magnet, so it just fits back on invisibly. But I saw that come up, and I thought, you know what, that's a nice figure. And Groot is one of the more popular figures from the MCU, and you can see this with a lot of the cute stuff like your Grogu's and your other that these do cross the border with collectors into mainstream, so they often disappear pretty fast because someone will get it as a Christmas present or stuff like that. So these often shoot up in value. Even the Groot pops are hard to get.
That's a good point. Is Groot the MCU version of Grogu? I would say not exactly, but certainly in the right track. And of course, there's three different variations, like the full adult version, the teenager version, and the really baby one. And I guess you got this one now, so there's 4 versions. Yeah, I think so. And I think if you were to do a version of Groot as a figure, regardless of which version it is, it'd be massively successful either way. So
I think people tend to forget Groot was an evil space monster in the very first appearances back in the 60s. He was like Monster of the Week that turned up to destroy Earth. That was just this huge tree alien kind of destroying everything like the Thing. So he's come a long way from that to the character that everyone thinks is the cute one that hangs out with Rocket and gets his own Disney Kids show.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I do think that, it does look very, very good and could be very successful. And once again, it was the photographs that made it work. And it's almost like, say, here's the figure. They say to the photographer, just do a whole lot of things with it. And, I'm being serious, and just take pictures, put in these really groovy backgrounds, and that's what will sell it. And I agree with Thomas. It has been sexed up. And ultimately, when an action figure or a statue or whatever you want to call it looks like it is completely screen accurate, like it's walked off the screen, that is an instant winner straight away. So, and because it's not a human, you can do that and get away with it. So, yeah, well done.
Yeah, so that's our news for the week. They're high-end figures this time. Nothing for, I guess, pocket money value, but some very nice items.
Yes, very, very good. So even Jacqueline's agreed that the pose did look a tad porny. Well, there you go. And there's all these comments about friggin' Woodies and shit going on. So we've got a filthy-minded audience out there tonight. I don't know what the deal is with that, but yeah, very, very good. Good to see that at least everybody's consistent with their filthy minds. So there you go. All right, now guess what? It's all very good. We're past off the toys. Let's go for something that nobody loves, because it's now time for this.
Useless Pop of the Week!
Now, I've got to say, I must be having problems, because I looked at this and I actually thought, you know what? I get it. It ain't half bad.
Really? A hamburger pop?
Well, it's first thing I noticed is the McDonald's logo isn't exactly the McDonald's logo. They've sort of played with it a little bit, but maybe for marketing purposes. And it does say it's a meal squad hamburger, whatever that is, right? But I got to admit, in the box and that, okay, I wouldn't get one. I don't want one, but I can look at it and go, it's not the worst I've ever seen.
Out of the box, look, that looks like a piece of crap, much like the real McDonald's, as Ronnie would tell us. That's like, what is that? I mean, you've got it looks like you paint it green, it's a frog. It doesn't look like a pop. It's got like two Maltesers for eyes. It's got a little, okay, it does hark back to the McDonald's land that was like sort of that Sid and Marty Croft look from the 70s. But really, if you're a pop collector, that does not fit into your collection.
Yeah, I just realised they actually do have the golden arches on the uniform. It's complete tripe. It really is. But I was just thinking, certainly not the worst I've ever seen. Chrissy's saying, don't insult her. There's a few comments about saying it's a poo burger. Oh, Jacqueline, cop that if you don't mind. Can I have a poo burger to go with my my piso crap? Well, guess what, kids? If that's not working for you, clearly you've got to have fries with it, and here they are.
Yes. And this one doesn't work as a pop either because it hasn't even got the round eyes. Now, I don't know any of the other pops. I might be wrong because I don't collect them that have eyelids. I didn't think they did. I thought they all had the black dead eyes. If I've got to say there's a condition of this. If these were available for free with a Happy Meal, I'd say good on you. They're giving away pops for free. They're shit, but they're giving them away for free. But because they're releasing these as the real line of pops, and there's 148 in this sub collection of food related pops, I just saw these and was like another one, like McDonald's, straight for the round receptacle that all that stuff should go into.
Couple of things that have come up. I like this from Dicko. Yeah, the pops are better on Hungry Jacks. Mary, good to see Mary joining the show for the first time. So hello, Mary. Hope you're enjoying it. All ghost fries. You're exactly right. So like real fries, have got no taste and they just disappear in your mouth. Feeling of Shatner. Look, I agree with you. I thought as a pair, the two boxes side by side with the thing, a complete tripe, but they make a good pair. And of course, if you're a McDonald's collector, I guess by default you'd be forced to get them. But yeah, I mean, as pops, take them out of the box, you'd never know they'll pops. But yeah, I totally agree with you. So
out of the box, they actually look really cheap too. They don't look even like they've got the same finish as a normal pop, which is cheap anyway. But these look subpar bargain basement pop.
Well, it's interesting. So Jacqueline has made the comment, and it's a good comment. I suspect a lawsuit is waiting to happen. If that was to occur, so just to say Funko, which is unlikely, Funko just said, put these things out, and they haven't like done their contracts properly, and McDonald's shut them down. The value of these things would just skyrocket because they were pulled back from the shelves and destroyed and whatever because they were made illegally. And officially made pops that were not endorsed by the original company. Oh yeah, it'd be funny. Imagine saying, "Oh, I've got the dodgy Big Mac and the dodgy chips, and they're selling for $1,000 a pop." How many Big Macs would that buy?
Pops have actually done that. They did that with Mystery Science Theater 2 or 3000, where they released 3 pops, and 2 of them were passed and endorsed, and the third one they didn't bother getting the rights to do, and there was lawsuits and withdrawals and take them back and destroy them, and they do go for quite a bit. But Jacqueline, I still have to say these pops still look more like the burgers than the ones that they advertise for sale at McDonald's on the menu. So they don't really misrepresent them too badly.
Yeah, no, exactly. Gavin said about why the chip bag looks like it's from any burger place, and that's what it looks like. Hang on, I'll just get rid of that. So, and Jacqueline's definitely convinced that no ways that Macca's would let this through. Well, it is an interesting point. Aside from the logo on the actual product, the box itself is pretty generic. So, anyway, wait and see. But either way, it is complete and utter tripe. One for your collection. For that brand new segment we'll make at some point called Piff It Out the Window, which is particularly cool. I love it. William, small potatoes. Yes, absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yes. Golden Arches copyright. I don't know if it's copyright. Yeah, exactly right. So good to see Jacqueline so chatty, because in the past, Jacqueline would come along and say hi and then just be quiet for the rest of the show. But clearly she's in the zone, which is absolutely spectacular, because I hope you're in the zone, Jacqueline and everybody else, for a little bit of this. You'll be happy, fans, to know this is actually a relatively short segment because nothing's happened this week, Mr. Aaron.
No, I haven't bought anything else. I haven't had anything arrive. And Ronnie wasn't that chatty, so it is a shorter segment. So I amused myself by sending him fun pictures to see what he would say.
Very good. So there's a little bit of text. It's not much. There's only got like 5 slides, everybody. So don't stress out. We'll be past this pretty quickly, but you'll like some of the correspondence, and off we go. Hang on. In the zone, of course, we are, Mr. Greg. That's exactly what it is. All right. So speaking of Mr. Greg, King, the soul here that he is, let's have a see what went on here. Mr. Aaron, you sent this message.
Hi, Ronnie. This is my friend Colin. He is super excited at getting his cool Star Trek t-shirt and Captain Pike ornament. Greg King is inspecting him and making sure his chair is oiled and mechanical leg is properly attached. So yes, Colin and Greg did pay a visit into the shop on the weekend at the same time. So that proves they're not the same person, as many people may have speculated.
Only their mother can tell them apart. What can I say, dude?
So I took the opportunity to take a photo and send it to Ronnie, because for those who haven't been following every week, we have bought some stuff for Colin. We bought a fantastic Star Trek t-shirt with a Star Wars design on, and we bought a Captain Pike Christmas ornament for Colin for Christmas. And Ronnie was going to organise that and make sure it gets to us fast.
I like this comment from Guy. He said, yeah, Ronnie's probably busy with the Christmas rush rort. Yes, exactly right. So for those who haven't been following this for a long time, very, very quickly, like Mary, who I think is a first-time watcher, hopefully she's still watching, we're talking about dealing with a company that's they're scammers, effectively, okay, selling dodgy products that either don't turn up or the wrong items when they do turn up. And there's been an ongoing correspondence between Aaron and this guy, Ronnie, for most of this year. So, but luckily, it's only just text-based. We're going to get through this pretty quickly. So just sit tight and hopefully you'll enjoy the segment. So Mr. Aaron, he said this, which is nothing at all.
Well, I sent that picture and I didn't get any reply at all for Ronnie, which sort of bamboozles the segment when I don't have like comedy replies. So I sent him this picture, which I found it was on the back of an old action figure collectible magazine. It was an advert for Deep Space Nine toys in the 90s. Hi, Ronnie, I'm going through a large collection of magazines at the moment and I found this. Maybe he is a relative. We have a running joke where we call Ronnie a Ferengi because Ferengi are known for ripping people off, basically.
That's exactly right, and it's true. Like characterization, you would never find anywhere else. So Ronnie, it turns out he was on a holiday.
Dear friend Aaron, had little holiday, so only answering now. All you top class high shelf items are on the way. One-legged friend will be very happy. Also, you will love lucky waving cats. I do not like this big-eared, grotesque goblin man you compare me to. Do not get the joke. From Ronnie.
Love it. Absolutely fantastic. Hang on, I just got to see if there's hang on. All right, so and we'll continue on.
Hi, Ronnie. If you look up Deep Space Nine, the Ferengi and Quark, you will see they are suppliers of top-class merchandise, just like you. Look forward to my delivery. We have had nothing for a few weeks now. All the best, Aaron.
So the gag is, for those out there, there's been items outstanding for months, and some of them just have not turned up, and Aaron has just been continually sending more and more money to have these things shipped out. It's the kind of thing, if you really wanted to see more of it, you'd have to go back through previous episodes. And if you're desperate enough to do that and follow the entire story from most of this year, you can actually go back and look at previous episodes of this show on YouTube. And there are chapter points, so you can go straight to the Greg King's Cheaper Things segment. It's a fair bit to digest, but the ongoing story, as most of the regular viewers will tell you, is just it's comedy gold, but it's annoying at the same time because he's dealing with a scammer. Okay, yes. So yes, which we've made a complete segment out of and a joke at the same time. So very, very good. All right, so Ronnie wrote back.
Hi, Aaron. Yes, I know what they are and who Quark is. I just do not think it is me. I was thinking that your one-legged friend would be a joke too, but photo proves not. I cannot always trust you and do not know when you joke. Your friend Ronnie.
Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me in the slightest. You're a bit of a dodgy dude sometimes. So, but then, of course, good old Mr. Aaron had to get the last laugh. Mr. Colin, you're going to love this. If you need a picture for your avatar for your Facebook page, you might want to consider this.
Hi, Ronnie. If I was joking about Colin, I would have sent you a picture like this, and I didn't put from Aaron. Right. And that was probably most of the conversations I've had with him this week. I have asked a couple more times if I'm getting anything, where's my stuff, but he didn't answer. So you've got the truncated version this week, but there you've got Robo Colin with his cyber legs bazooka and Robocop helmet. So Ronnie didn't answer this yet, but I only sent it to him yesterday.
Yes, part man, part nerd. Love it. Absolutely fantastic. So it was a relatively simple segment tonight, which is all particularly good and very, very exciting. And good. I like this from Rusky Babes. Ronnie comes down the chimney and steals the kids' best toys. You're exactly right. And then resells them later on, only to not deliver them when they're supposed to be delivered.
Yeah.
Angel said that, Quark would actually be offended by this. Yeah, exactly right. Yes, very, very cool. Good stuff. All right, so all good and groovy. Well, guess what? So that's the Great King Sing. It was nice, short, quick, and out of the way, which means, of course, it's time for this. Very, very good. Now, before I mention, they got a question coming up. Jacqueline has asked, do you know which country Ronnie is based? It's somewhere in Asia, but do you know exactly, dude?
I don't. I think it's really hard to check because he works as a customer rep for AliExpress and they represent a whole lot of different people. And when I order stuff, it comes from different places depending on what seller it comes from. I have a feeling he's from Hong Kong, actually. I don't know why that is. I might have asked in the past, and he might have told me or something, but I think he's from Hong Kong, but I'm not 100% sure. It could be anywhere.
And as Ronnie has actually said, it's not his actual real name too. So don't go looking for him in the phone book over in Hong Kong because you won't find him. So where are we? So it's the vile time. It's time to get violated and vile time. Well, as you know, fans, we get the old vile mailbag and letters come in. And this particular letter came through. And I say, I've got to applaud this person's persistence and their dedication. But I've got to ask themselves, I'll tell you what, I reckon they're going to be a bit whacked in the head by the time it's all done. Because guess what Andrea has been up to?
Dear Mr. Vile, I've watched back most of the Vile files and I got to the ones with the bad aliens on Doctor Who. Are these the worst aliens on TV or have you seen worse? Andrea.
Andrea, what are you doing? It's going to rot your head, mate. No one wants to have too much of the vile file. It'll violate your internal organs. Nobody should do that to them. There should be a warning label. Do not overwatch. Can cause massive distress to brain.
Well, do you know what? After they on Andor, after they make Bix listen to those sounds, the next thing is they slip on the goggles and make her watch the Vile file.
See, that is great, isn't it? Too much repeat viewing can damage your head. You put the goggles on and you just watch it. There's no more. I don't want to be violated even more. Oh, you can make a joke out of that, eh? So absolutely fantastic. So now, good on, seriously, Andrew. Good on you for putting up with it. Jeez, that's a lot of pain to sit through. So
I tell you what, Russell has called it here, hasn't he? Because his comment there is very, very apt for tonight's.
Love
segment.
it. There you go. I love it. Christy, yeah, Andrew, you poor, I think it's supposed to be naive child. No, yes, exactly right. So, and the funny thing, Andrew has never appeared live, so obviously watches it in replay, but very good. Yes, good stuff. All right, so it's what are we talking about? We're talking about the worst TV aliens ever. Is that right there, Mr. Aaron?
Yeah, the worst aliens ever TV edition. Now, we have in the past, Andrew, if you want to trawl through the old episodes, I think we've looked at worst and best B movie aliens at one point, and I don't think we've done movie aliens. I know we've looked at some of the bad movies, but not particularly the costume designs in them. But this is just looking at a couple of the TV ones, and are there worse ones in Doctor Who? Are there worse than Doctor Who? Let's have a look.
Go for it.
Now, there's some fantastic aliens in Star Trek, and you can pick different ones from different areas that stand out as good. And even some of the ones that are just men in plastic suits or rubber suits, like the Gorn, still hold up as pretty cool aliens for their time. Now, then there's other ones where they try and do something a bit more out of the box, and let's just face it, they're pretty crap. This is Negalium, I think his name is, who was in one of the, I think, series 2 of Next Generation, one of the earlier series before they were consistently high. And I don't know what they were trying to do here. They probably didn't have money for what they wanted to do, or they were trying to do an effect that didn't quite work. But I remember seeing this and going, that's pretty piss poor. Now, that's a bad alien. What did you think of this alien, Dags?
Well, ironically, it's actually not that bad because Star Trek was notorious, absolutely notorious, especially Next Generation. They get a person walk in, they'll just stick bits of latex on their face, paint them up, and suddenly they're a brand new race. Then somebody else would walk in, they'd just get the same bits and stick them somewhere else, and they're another new race. And then someone else would walk in, they rip those bits off, put both lots on a different person, and they're another new race. And it became the running joke of saying, oh, it must be the Tuesday Star Trek alien. Somebody just walked in off the lot and they go, yeah, but just put some shit on your face, paint it up. Oh my God, how good is this? So that at least had a bit of thought put into it. So yes.
When the Vile researched this, he did look at a lot of stuff, and he could have gone with stuff like Space Hippies from the 60s, which is a pretty piss poor alien, or the one he nearly went with was basically giant tubes of toothpaste with blue fish heads that kind of walked around as well, which is a pretty average alien as well.
Well, one of those fish heads was Mick Fleetwood, actually. He shaved his beard off. I don't know why he did it, but there you go. But anyway, as it turns out, clearly the Vile thought that alien looked completely poxy and decided to fix it up by adding a giant cat.
Yes, so what the Vile has done with this Vile file, not only is he providing the worst looking aliens, but he's also providing a fix that would make the episode better. So as Dags has said, the Vile fixes the problem by replacing it with a giant space cat. And let's face it, that would have been pretty funny and pretty cool.
Well, imagine if it was that's what they could have done in one of the episodes. Just so someone's injected Spot. Data's cat has ended up in a transporter accident and it comes out the size of the Enterprise floating around.
They'd have to call the goodies in to get it back and round it up, wouldn't they?
I know, and it's like they'd be looking at it, and you can just imagine I don't know who would say, so we're going to need one big box of kitty litter for that. So
you can imagine where Data looks at the screen and just goes, now that is one large pussy.
Indeed. Russell said Star Trek had a giant cat for real in the 60s. Gary Seven had a cat. I can't remember any others, but anyway.
I can't remember a giant cat. I remember the giant green hand in space.
Yeah, that's all right. Anyway, it's all good. So in terms of Star Trek aliens, I agree. It probably wasn't much chop, but it's certainly a lot better than the old just chuck on a bit of latex. They must sometimes just lick it with a bit of glue, have the actor stand there, just go chuck, 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 and then wherever it lands, they go, there we go, brand new alien.
Well, that's how the costume designers want it. You know, when we want a new alien, you must lick it. Lick it good.
Exactly right. All right, so we're sticking with some violating aliens, dude.
Now, this is back to Doctor Who, or Docky Who, as we call it on this show, where you've got the Vardens. And the Vardens were the end-of-season sort of monsters where they've obviously run out of budget. And they fixed this by making them out of empty plastic bags. And when they appeared on screen, modified by the people at the BBC Special Effects Department, they still just looked like empty plastic bags.
Rusky said the giant cat was in the Halloween Trek app. Okay, not ringing any bells. I assume that's the original series and not the animated series, but I'll believe you. So, cat's paw. Okay, we'll have funny a cat's paw. I don't remember that at all, so I must have blocked that one from my head. Anyway, so you got the Vardens looking absolutely spectacular, and what did the Vile try and do to fix them up?
Well, firstly, we're seeing what the BBC tried to do. In the DVD release, they actually kind of put this, I guess, smoky effect to make them look more like human over the top. No, you can't waste alfoil and plastic bags in one episode. That's two monsters gone right there. But this was the BBC's effect where they tried to fix it up by doing a totally different effect over the top. But I think the Vile has come up with a much better idea and a much more environmentally friendly one.
Is that this one? Ah, there we go.
Yes. So what the Vile has suggested is get rid of the plastic and replace it with paper bags. And much better effect is go for Tucker from the old Tucker Bag ads from the Tucker Bag franchise. And you can see they are a lot scarier than those floating plastic bags. I do not think the Doctor would have been able to defeat them.
Totally agree with you. And the one thing about those Tucker bags I've got going for them is they can always just carry away everything that they need to sort of remove from any particular location, which is particularly cool. So there you go. Good old Tucker from Tucker Bag. God, that's going bringing back some memories, isn't it? So very good. Now we're moving on to Lost in Space. Is that right?
We are, and there is a plethora of bad aliens in Lost in Space. Now, I have to say, there are good aliens in Lost in Space as well, but they often went into the costume department, found a Mardi Gras mask, painted it a different color, or went for something that was in a different show. And the trouble with the Lost in Space aliens, a lot of the time, the faces, they just had no movement. It was like paper mache heads or something like that. Or when they did try and get creative, it was often slapping silver paint or gold paint on someone and going, there you go, it's an alien. Now, the vial hasn't gone for any of the ones which just were space prospectors or space cowboys or something like that, which is also pretty piss poor. But there is one particularly bad monster on Lost in Space. Do you remember which monster that is, Dags?
That'd be Tybo, dude.
It is amazing that Lost in Space got to the point where a credible monster for them was a giant carrot man that wanted to turn the Robinsons into vegetables. Now, I would argue by watching this episode repeatedly, the audience might have been turned into a vegetable. They managed to turn Dr. Smith into a stick of celery that you see there before they got the rest of the Robinsons. So it wasn't too bad for anyone. But do you know what the vial did to fix this? Go ahead, Dag. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, the reason why Dr. Smith looks that way is because Jonathan Harris said, I want to raise in my celery. And they totally misinterpreted what he said. And then it's very good. All right. So this is the vial's humor at its absolute best, in inverted commas. So what happened, dude?
Well, the vial fixed the whole plot. He just used rotten carrots instead. They were a lot cheaper than making the vegetable, and it actually is disgusting to have Dr. Smith eating a moldy carrot there. So you could say that the vial has violated Dr. Smith with that one.
I like what Phil said. Yeah, this is hilariously stupid. Yeah, more stupid than hilarious, but there you go. Oh, dear. It must have been an expensive carrot suit. Yeah, that's the irony of that. And I'll tell you a very, very funny story just as a quick aside, speaking of carrots. You remember Kenny Baker, the actor from Star Wars who played R2-D2? He once said that one of his really, really early jobs, he was an actor, he was just starting out, and of course he was a diminutive person, and he actually went for an audition as a carrot in some kind of pantomime thing, and he didn't get it. He said, how does that feel to you? He go, couldn't even get the job as a carrot. He said it was so funny.
It was the son of Tybo, the return of the great vegetable rebellion.
I mean, yeah, exactly right. I don't know what you're going, you two, Mary, but I'll tell you what, you're going to go a bit more Ewing coming on because, as was mentioned earlier, the Tomorrow People has made an appearance here, Mr. Aaron.
So this is the ultimate winner for the crappest monsters ever. The Tomorrow People was notorious for having no budget. Now, people knock Doctor Who for having bad monsters, but the Tomorrow People often looked like they whacked whatever was together. So you get it. I don't know if you know this bit of trivia, Dags. The top one on the left, the green disintegrating man, is actually Hitler because Hitler was a shape-changing alien from outer space. And do you know who played Hitler?
No, I've got no idea.
Michael Sheard, who played Hitler in many other things, including Last Crusade.
There you go.
He started off as a Tomorrow People villain. You can't quite see the one on the top right, but that's probably good that it's been obscured because it is an alien that is ribbed for your pleasure. And then the one in the middle left looks like they've slapped a foil hat on the Loch Ness Monster and put a big grin on him. Of course, the middle one is the Space Ku Klux Klan, which I don't know what they were thinking there either. Maybe the most horrific thing that happened in the Tomorrow People, the guy in the pair of Y fronts there is actually Peter Davison as one of the bad guys on the Tomorrow People in a blonde afro wig and pretty much nothing else.
Well, hang on. Does that mean, like, because he's wearing the blue jocks, and of course he, is that his version of the TARDIS where it's bigger on the inside?
Well, I'll leave that to everyone's imagination. Now, across the bottom, we have some of the members of the Galactic Trig, which they often alluded to in the Tomorrow People and you never saw. And it wasn't till War of the Empires and the very end of the Tomorrow People they actually went there, and then you understand why they never went there. The aliens really look like subpar Muppets. But the greatest one of all there, because it's such a... Peter Davison must have been absolutely desperate. Well, it is interesting because it was before he was famous with his comedy and Doctor Who shows. But,
well, the worst part is every time he went to the dunny to take his Dax down, all you'd be hearing was woo.
Well, his sister in this was played by Andy Dickinson, who was his Sandra Dickinson, who was his wife after meeting him on this production. But the biggest come down all for the Tomorrow People has to be in the bottom square on the right there. Do you know who that that strong-looking actor is,
Yeah.
one of the greatest monsters in cinema history.
Yeah, Mr. David Prowse.
Mr. David Prowse appeared as a strapping android in the Tomorrow People, and that's why the Tomorrow People took a credible science fiction idea and totally flushed it down the toilet with horrible budget and horrible costumes. But they weren't the worst creatures on the Tomorrow People.
No, they were not, because apparently you got some of these, Mr. Aaron.
Giant balloons. Now, we're not talking big enough to be, weather balloons, like pretty cool. They're the sort of big party balloons, and they were filmed so incredibly that in some scenes you could see the knots where they were actually blown up and tied off. Now, these were called the living skins, which basically would gently blow up to you and inhabit you and slowly digest you, which is quite a terrifying idea for a children's show, but it was done so horribly that you could outrun them by a slow walk. And it wasn't filmed with any drama. And I remember as a kid seeing this and thinking this is quite scary, and remember seeing it as an adult and wishing that these episodes were missing. So I just had the kids' memories of them, kind of thing. So do you know what the Vial did to fix this?
What did the Vial do, Mr. Aaron?
He basically gave up. He just watched a good episode of The Prisoner instead, because he was sick of this subject and asked Andrea not to send in any more dumb subjects for him to have a look at, basically.
Very good. And before we finalise, a couple of things I've got to go right back, because I just got to find in here. We're talking about carrots and things earlier on. Before we get to the end of the segment, Mounty Bag Sullivan to Judy Robertson thought the Carrot Man was awesome in more ways than one. You can interpret that any way you like. Jacqueline, just for your for future reference, it's not violated, it's violated. Just we make a point of getting the spelling right, because violated is a completely different thing. But yes, I love the comment, no worries at all. And of course, yes, vegans beware. Very good. So we got to the end, Mr. Aaron. And what are you trying to tell me? Hang on, I've got to press my right buttons. What are you trying to tell me about all these aliens, Mr. Aaron?
Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time, didn't it? But no, the Vial has gone through, sorted them, looked at them, and especially the Thargon in the middle there has been absolutely violated.
Love it. Magnificent. I reckon hopefully that fulfills Andrea's wishes in getting some very interesting aliens up on the screen. Yes, unfortunately, some TV shows, mainly budgetary reasons, do end up having aliens that don't look that flash.
Before we move on, I have a question for you, because it was one of the dilemmas the Vial had. Is a crap alien an alien that just looks exactly human? Because they just we'll just put him in a silver skin suit, like spacesuit.
Well, you can understand why they do it. So using the Star Trek's analogy again, one of the things that's important for an audience is to say, well, we can relate to the character because it's a human qualities, human-like. If you make it too alien, so if it had the head of I don't know, I can't think off the top of my head. There's like a big horrible thing. You can't relate to it. Right, so there's no empathy for it. So if something happens to it, you just go, mate, it's just a big freaking dorky costume. Nobody cares. But if it's got a human face or based on a human face, and you can actually empathize when there's actually issues with the thing, with the character itself. So I can see why they do it. The problem is you can only do so many variations of makeup on a person's face before you start saying, okay, now we're cheaping it right up. And of course, Star Trek had that. Every episode was like an Alien of the Week scenario. They just must have just run out of ideas. So putting it in very, very simple terms.
True.
And Rusky Babes has come with a fun factoid. The balloons in Prisoner were used because they had made a robotic hovercraft rover, but it sank into the sea the first time they used it. So there you go. How good is that, Mr. Aaron?
And as it went down, they all said, "Be seeing ya."
Boom, tish. Good stuff. Okay, we've been taking the piss out of 70 sci-fi aliens when they had the money. But what are they really shit? 1990s aliens onwards. Yes, unfortunately, there'll always be room for bad aliens in TV shows and movies.
If you look at the early 1990s, early CGI, that's a Vial file right there, isn't it?
Yeah, totally agree with you. But of course, if you want to see really good examples of outstandingly good alien design, just look at Babylon 5. But we're not here to do that. We're here to, now that we've got all these people watching us, indulge in a bit of interactivity from the audience, because it's now time for this.
Ooh, baby, do you know that's what...
All right, so we're doing a bit of the old eBay section. For those who've never seen this segment before, we're going to show you some items that sold on eBay, and all you can do is just put in your guesses as to what you think they sold for. Don't look it up, don't Google it, don't cheat. It's just bragging rights is all we get. Is that right there, Mr. Aaron?
Yeah, and this one's an interesting one because it's one of those where it can be 99 cents or it can be many thousands of dollars, because who can predict what people are going to bid on out of print DVDs?
Exactly right. Chrissy made a point of some of the demons on Buffy. Yeah, I think Buffy did suffer from a TV budget scenario. And of course, they had a lot of demons pop up. Some were better than others, but I think either way, you can't really knock their vampire makeup. I really always thought that was kind of cool, especially when they got dusted. So, what are we
Yeah.
talking about tonight, Mr. Aaron?
So we're looking at collectible DVDs. So the DVDs we're looking at are generally ones that are no longer being pressed and have been superseded, or they're special edition sets that collectors might be after or looking for, usually from franchises that have big fan bases. So the prices for these are all over the place. This is the Lord of the Rings Hobbit extended DVD box set. So it's all 3 movies with the figures and all the bells and whistles that came with them. So you can buy standard versions of DVDs that are usually quite reasonably priced, and then you can buy the deluxe versions that often come in limited edition box sets that are numbered and come with cards and figures and bookends and mini statues and all of that kind of thing. So we're looking at some of the collectible DVD box sets tonight.
I actually think the Lord of the Rings extended edition series from the early, was it 2003 to 2005, were the best trilogy of movies ever made. Absolutely spectacular. You can take the end credits off each of them and the starting credits, and they all join up as one 12-hour movie. I absolutely love them. Huge fan. So seeing these as mint condition is actually quite cool, because extended edition is the only way to go. Andrew said 52 cents, but he said that before the item came up, so I don't know if you want to stick with that, Ange. Colin said 100. Christy said 3 cents, 1 cent for every box set. Oh, Christy, I don't think so. Moneybag Sullivan's gone for 300, $100 a box set. Inga, good to see Inga joining the show, is at 115. Actually, William's got these unopened. Oh, there you go, dude. You might be sitting on a gold mine. Well, let's see what they sold for. Philip said 200. Mary said 75. Guy said 210. Williams at 125. Rob is at 150. Good to see Rob joining the show. Inga, her daughter, says 800. That's not too bad. And Jeffro has joined us. He's gone for $140. Gavin has gone for 56. Guy said me mate. I like that one. Yeah, me mate. Yeah, me mate says 230. So very good stuff. Good to see these in mint condition. There was a lot of releases of the films when they first came out, both the short version and the extended version, but the extended version is the one to go with. All right, so Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. Oh, this is the Hobbit series. Sorry, I thought it was the Lord of the Rings movie. I just saw Lord of the Rings. I didn't even see the Hobbit thing. So apologies there, fans. So in that case, then, I don't think this would be worth as much, because the Hobbit films did not do as well as the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. Jacqueline said 95. Did you pick up on that? Sorry, dude, I missed that.
Yeah. I just thought you were giving a comment on Lord of the Rings. By putting Lord of the Rings in the title, more people will find it, and it will probably sell for more as well.
Indeed. So let's find out. It was the trilogy that wasn't as good as the original trilogy. Okay, extended edition DVD box sets come with the figures as new, sealed, brand new, one bid. It all went for a whopping $600 round figures, Mr. Aaron.
Did someone say 800? Was that the closest?
I'll have a look, man. Anything? Inga's daughter said 800. So yeah, probably is. Have a look. Have a chat. Sorry, I'll be with you in a sec.
So as Dag said, I don't think these are as nice box sets as the Lord of the Rings one, which came with these miniature bookends and some really cool extra stuff. They are still a nice set. We've had a couple of people say they own them themselves. Now that you know they're worth $600, maybe you might want to whack them on eBay.
Indeed. So Inga's daughter, you actually get some change back. You get an extra $200 back and 5 cents. So it's actually very, very cool. It's probably because of the statues. The statues were actually very, very good. Inga's daughter says, my daughter says, thank you. That's okay. You didn't actually win anything, but you got bragging rights. But can you keep the trend up? We've got 4 more items to go. Let's have a look.
So here we go. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Fast Forward DVD set. Volume 12, I think, or volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry. So there's 6 volumes. Teenage Mutant Ninja Rare. And you know, when you put rare on it, it's got to be rare. Now, I'm going to tell you something before anyone starts bidding on this. I have had these in the shop and sold them for $2 each. Very
good. Christy said she put 3 cents because it was The Hobbit. Now, thank you for that, Christy. I wasn't aware of it at the time. I just saw Lord of the Rings. I still would put 3 cents on it, but I can understand why you didn't think they were worth that much. All right, so you were chucking these out for a song, Mr. Aaron. I like how you said, before everybody starts bidding on it, and they've already started. So let's have a look and see how we go. Angie's gone for 104. Colin's gone for 10. Gavin's gone for 10. Phil's gone for 50. Christy, 1 cent. Oh, Christy, that. Moneybag Sullivan has said 5. Guy is bucking the trend, has gone for 150. Inga has got 35. I want to see what Inga's daughter has to say. William has said 25. What does everybody else think? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fast forward DVD box set. Oh, Greg has gone for the $2 each at the garage sale. That's $10. Deb, good to see Deb joining the show. Absolutely fantastic. The director of Star Walking. Good to see Deb joining us at 250. Inga's daughter, who won the last one, has said 800. Rob has said 12. Mary says 45. See, nobody really knows. That's part of the gag of this entire segment. We chuck up random things and we make people think about it. Rusky Babes has said $10. Very, very good. All right, so what do you reckon it all went for? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fast forward DVD set volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Rare, as we like to say, rare, collectible. They're always going to bring in a crowd. James has joined the show as well, which is absolutely fantastic. He said 500. What do you reckon it went for, fans? It went for a whopping $500. Oh, James, you're right on the money. I hope unless James bought these. How's that, dude?
Now, the sad thing about this, I really did get this set in and go, oh, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like $2 each in the cheap bin, and sold them all for $12. I think one guy bought them. This is a while ago. Maybe he listed them on eBay and got $500, but it just does show you need to check with some of these out of print DVDs because there are collectors that are after them. I would never have guessed that set would go for $500, but there you go.
The quote that needs to be highlighted for this particular thing, which you can use just about all the time, is from Deb. Good to see Deb. There's some crazy TMNT collectors out there. They're just crazy collectors in general, but yeah, that is completely nuts. Yeah. James has said they're expensive. Fast forward is expensive, but not worth it. But either way, Mr. James, you got it right on the money at $500. So well done.
And do you know what? He got it in right at the end. And if he hadn't have gone in, Inga's daughter would have got it again at 800. So they're both doing pretty well.
Well, yeah. Inga's daughter said, "Let the side down." Come on, Inga. Your daughter's going to pick up a game. What can I say? All right. So it's now time to move on. What have we got? Hang on. I'll press the right button. Here we go. Oh, check it out.
Here is another set that, again, I've had before individually. I don't think I've had all of them and sold them, but this is the Resident Evil movie DVD collection. So some of these are out of print now, and there are some of the better zombie movies. You do find these around really cheap, though. I've got to say, some of these are easy to get and, in your cashies and in your op shops, but some of the later ones are hard to find. So how much would you get the whole set for, do you think, Dags?
Well, I would piff all 5 of the 6 out the window. The first movie is the best by far. It is absolutely spectacular. I love Resident Evil, the first movie, and all just went down a sequel hell after that. So, but yeah, as a zombie movie, it was awesome. All right, 6 movies on DVD. Yay, team. It's a dying technology, but some people still love it. Okay, hang on. I've got to scroll up the screen. Sorry, Andrew said $1.04. James has said 30. Colin said not 500. Don't know what that means. Deb said 75. Gavin said 15. Chrissy said 6 cents. That's a cent a disc. I love that. Where are we? Moneybag Sullivan said 40. Colin said 35. Rob is at $1. Williams at 40. Okay. Inga said, my daughter, pay me 800. I'll cop that if you don't mind. Umpire, $30 from Mary. Guy has said 400. Oh, even I wouldn't think that. He just said $1.04 plus a multi-pass. Yeah, wrong movie, dude. Phil is at 99. Very, very good. And okay, Guy's mate says 670. So there you go. And Inga said it was actually her who said it. So there you go. What an unbelievably different range of prices. So what do you reckon? Resident Evil movie collection DVD. These are standard DVDs. They're not special box sets. There's no what do you call it? Statues or anything. How much do you reckon they went for, Mr. Aaron? They went for a whopping 1 cent. And I'll give you one guess who got that for that price. And that has got to be Christy. 1 cent a disc.
Well, I tell you what, Christy has no idea because she was prepared to pay 6 times what they went for, which is way off, isn't it?
Christy, you've ripped yourself off. What can I say? That's a 5-cent coin. Actually, it's a 10-cent coin because there's no 1 cent anymore. And you've jibbed yourself. What can I say? 1 cent. Dude, what is the deal?
Zombies are not in at the moment. That's something. And you look at the postage. The postage is $24, which is 24,000 times the price of the item.
See, that is a piff it out the window job, right? Yep, piff it out. It's piff, not puff. You don't puff it out the window. You piff it out the window. But yeah, that's amazing. I mean, you wouldn't even buy that. It's not even worth packing up and selling it. So yeah, it's just obviously somebody who has a DVD player, had missing a couple of movies, and said, "Yeah, beauty, I'll pay a cent." Isn't that ridiculous? Oh, I just don't get that at all. There's 6 coffee coasters. What can I say?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. All right, very, very good. Mary, that happens a lot. Actually, most of the money is on the shipping side, but either way, it is a waste of money. So yes, very, very good. All right, yeah, spell check. Yeah, piff and puff. All right, next one up. Here we go. Oh, dude.
No, this is fantastic. Everybody loves the Family Guy. I mean, you can see them for free because I'm sure there's one of the Channel 7 stations that plays them 24 hours a day. But I think a lot of the early Family Guy seasons are out of print now. So this is for 10 seasons worth of Family Guy. I mean, that's like watching every rip it off the card for the whole year or in one go. So there's got to be some value to this lot.
Yeah, it'd be like poor old Andrew from the Vile File. It would absolutely rot your brain. Angie said 208. I assume it's for this particular one, but good on you, Ange. Collins said 25. Inga's at 301. I agree with you, Chrissy. You couldn't pay me enough to buy these. Phil said 100. Deb has said 30. Mary is at 20. People just don't know, do they? I mean, they are DVDs after all. Who cares about DVDs? William's at 22. Inga's daughter. Does your daughter even have a name? You can actually put a name in if you want to. It's $85.70. Guy said 250. Hang on. James has said $10. Actually smashed them through on Disney Plus. Oh, well, there you go. Good stuff. Moneybag Sullivan says 250. Jeffro said 60. Gavin's gone for 30. Rob has gone for 25. And Guy's mate. Yeah, my mate says 170. I love that. So I'll tell you what, you might need to find a new mate because he's clearly not getting it right.
Yeah.
Yes, but she's not impressed. Not impressed with what, the auction items or us? But
Probably,
that's okay. I understand if it's both.
Probably us.
Greg has said $2 each of the garage sale. Sorry, dude, what was that?
Probably us. She's not impressed with.
Yep, I can get that. All right, no worries. Family Guy DVD set 10 seasons. Oh, geez, that'd keep you going for a while, wouldn't it? How much you reckon it went for 2 bids? It went for a whopping $1.25.
There you go. I'd pay that just to watch the Star Wars episodes because I do find them actually quite entertaining.
Yes, and $1.25. Who paid the least amount of money out of all that? I think everybody's overpaid. Actually, I'll tell you who didn't get it. Guys made it $170. Greg got it. Did he? Greg at the $2 bin. Greg, he's up here somewhere. I've lost him. So you got.
I can see 2 for $2 at the garage sale. So I think that was pretty close. I have to say, before it was being streamed and repeated, the Family Guy's been going for nearly 20 years now, that I bought these as they came out. So it's nice to know that my hundreds and hundreds of dollars investment is now worth less than $2.
There you go. And Greg, you get 75 cents back, dude. How good is that? Very, very groovy. So, yes, and there are a couple of funny moments on it too. But yeah, 10 seasons will keep you going for a period of time. And yes, it is a free pickup as well. Inga said if I gave her name out, I'm not sure what happens after that. If you don't want to share a name, you don't need to. It's all good. She can just be your daughter. All right, everybody, have a look at this.
Here's to give me roses. I wish he would again. It's the Prisoner collection. That's the whole drama of Cell Block H. For not this new Wentworth, the one with the freak, which everybody loves. So this is the entire collection of Prisoner Cell Block H. It's 176 or 174 DVD box set. Very rare, as new. Now that is a whopping piece of television history right there.
I tell you what, imagine putting in the first disc, first episode, and as soon as the credits start rolling, oh my God, there's a lot of TV to watch. It was a famous show, ran for many, many, many years in Australia. So very, very cool. All right, so it started the whole trend of women being in prison. A whole box set. My God, there must be thousands of hours in there. All right, Angie's gone for $355. Inga's happy with it. She likes this. $325 for her. Mary's gone for $100. Inga's daughter, the unnamed daughter, has said $800. Rusky Babes at $500. Chrissy's gone for $129. Jeffro, he's gone for the $1,450. Gavin under $1. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work. William's gone for $1,500. Remember, Someone said a moment ago, "Oh, DVDs are dead technology." And that was me who said that. Robert said 300. 300. Colin's gone for 125. Rusky Babe said it cost $1,500 new. Well, it's a question of whether the price has stayed the same or gone up or down. Deb is at 230. Guy has said no, it's not Guy's friend this time. It's Guy himself, 120. 30. I don't know what 30 is. $30. I assume that to be. You would rarely see this, especially like this. You would. It would be very rare. Phil's gone for 100. Moneybag Sullivan's at 275. Guy's mate, good to see, stuck his nose in, is at $125. Unbelievable. That is an impressive thing. Like new. Very, very good stuff. All right, so what do you reckon it went for everybody? It was a famous series on TV back in the 80s, and it has obviously been remade with the new Wentworth series. But you are right. You need a bit of freak action. What can I say? So it went for a whopping $1,900, Mr. Aaron.
Well, for anyone who's going to plow through all 174 episodes, they pretend Rita is dead, so they catch the freak out. And when the freak goes to prison, she opens the little gate and Rita gives her the food, and that's how it ends. Now you don't have to watch the whole series. But yeah, William's pretty close, but still got to cough up some extra money.
Yeah, it's $400 short, Mr. William. But how about that? Isn't that interesting? So, yeah, someone said, woohoo, yeah, it's got to go nuts. And yeah, everybody's excited. No way. I know it's hard to believe, isn't it? And you are right. Whoever bought these would highly unlikely never watch it.
Yeah,
it's way too much. That's the kind of thing you have to set aside a few years of your life. Sorry, dude.
I do think if you drop $1,500 on a DVD set, you're probably not thinking you're going to get a return on your investment. You know, that's because you're a fan of the show and you want to watch it. So it's nice to see that some of these DVDs have held their value, and we're not just sitting on, in my case, thousands and thousands of silver coasters.
I love it. I always thought that Lizzie Birdsworth was good on your rock.
She was a lagger.
It was an excellent show, though, and good on to whoever got that. All right, now, guess what? We got something very important we've got to bring up. It's commercial time, right? Guess what, fans? This is very, very important. Make sure you're all paying attention. Don't worry about writing comments, because believe it or not, hang on, I just pressed the wrong button. Believe it or not, if you're a fan of this show and listen to the two of us gurgle on time after time after time, week after week, year after year, guess what? We're saying to you, if you're an attention everybody, if you're a supporter and viewer of our show, guess what? We're organising a special thank you Christmas dinner. Isn't that right, Mr. Aaron?
We are. One of the feedbacks I've had in the shop is, why don't you do an event where everyone can get to meet you and hang out? And we have done a couple of shop events over the year, which have kind of been in conjunction with my shop and getting together after hours and catching up. But we're actually going to organize a dinner for anyone who wants to get together. And what we're going to do, we're going to book a table at the Matthew Flinders. It's pay for yourself, pay as you go. Anyone who wants to go and is definitely going to be there, just contact me or contact Dags. We will book the table. Me and Dags are going to be there and have a meal and a chat and a catch up. We'll probably have some of the other people who are on different shows on the channel who will come along as well. So you might get someone who's into Toys and Trial or Fan View or some of the other things we do. And we're just going to have a Christmas get together party at the Matthew Flinders, and everyone's invited. So anyone who wants to come, all you have to do is let us know. It's on that date. We can't change it. We've got a busy schedule. So if you're busy that day, we're sorry, we're not changing anything, but we'll get together and we'll have a fun evening nerding out at the Matthew Flinders.
Very good. All right, so two things to be aware of, very, very important, is we do need you to, whoever's watching, to confirm. Don't say your message now. Send a message to either Aaron or myself through whatever means you want. And of course, you're paying for yourselves. We're not paying for you. Hey, we don't make that much money off this show. We just get zeros on top of zeros. So yes, by all means, if you're interested and you want to support us and you want to come along and catch up and hang out for the night, it should be absolutely fantastic. And yeah, so we're aiming for the Matthew Flinders. It's not confirmed. It's not booked yet. So don't run it off there right now and sit there waiting for us, because that hasn't happened yet. And very good. Deb said, because Deb's from Sydney, it's a long way to travel. Can we crash at your place? Oh, party. Absolutely fantastic. So it should be good. Colin said, is Ronnie invited? What we'll do is just find some random person on the street, wise them up as to what's going on. Come on in, just pretend you're Ronnie. Nobody will know any different. Just bring along, get him to fake up a small home for hobbits and bring that along. Go, there it is, Aaron. All awesome. Good stuff.
You never know. Some of Ronnie's stuff might actually be Kris Kringle gifts or something for our loyal viewers. If 100 people turn up, stiff cheese, no. But if we get a couple of dozen people, who knows what you might get on the night.
Very good. Jacqueline's asked, where is the Matthew Flinders? It's actually in Chadstone. It's actually on Warrigal Road in Chadstone. We'll provide more information closer to the date. We've only just announced it now. We'll probably mention this again in the next few episodes of this show. So for the people who are either watching it in replay and whatever. And if you are watching this show in replay, you yourself are absolutely more entitled to come along and join us. So, so just put the word out. But it's important you let us know because we are going to obviously have to book a table. And as we said, pay for yourselves at the time. So, and we'll provide information as to the actual location and all the rest of it later on. So don't panic. But yes, Chadstone is where it is at. Absolutely fantastic. Now, before we go on any further, it's just gone 9 o'clock, which is absolutely fantastic. For those who aren't aware of it, if you want to know more about what's going on in the old Sci-Fi zone, because we've got other shows that occur on different days of the week, be sure to check us out on the Twitters and the Instagrams and the YouTubes. If you go to YouTube, we've got every single one of our shows is on YouTube. You just got to dig through the whole lot, which is absolutely spectacular. But if that's not working for you, and you go, you know what, I need a bit of face-to-face action to nerd out a bit, Mr. Aaron's store, of course. You've got Main Street Blackburn, Mr. Aaron.
Yep. So we're open 7 days a week. We're open all the way through Christmas, up until Christmas. Consider coming in and getting a unique Christmas present or a secondhand collectible. And we do gift vouchers as well. So if your loved one is too hard to buy for because they're picky or you don't know what's in their collection, you can always give the gift that really shows you love them, cold hard cash to spend in my store. So we're, as we said, we're pretty hot and sweaty in there at the moment, and we're pretty crowded because we're overstocked because we've been sorting through this massive collection. But we are always buying, always selling, and always chatting. So if you want to come in for a chat, Dags is there every second Saturday, and he is by far the most popular staff member in the shop.
I don't know if I want to come in now because you said everybody's hot and sweaty. And it's like, oh, dude, that just sounds a bit dodgy, doesn't it? It's like, excuse me, we're just going to sort of like waste our own nerdy juices on. What's the deal with that?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Slide it off the card.
Very, very cool. All right, good stuff. So there you go. That's the dinner and all that. But if not, then head off onto Aaron's store. It's absolutely fantastic at the moment. Guess what, fans? It's time for our feature presentation. And this is a good one because Aaron thought of this a few days ago. And I thought, well, it's something completely left to center, but I think it has the potential to do very well for itself. So what are you talking about, Mr. Aaron?
So there is an area of pop culture that is very, very popular, but is also very, very forgotten. It depends on what show it is, of course, and it's the afternoon, after-school shows that we grew up with. And some of them have gone on to be cultural icons and lived a life beyond their actual time on screen. And others have been virtually forgotten with no memories apart from you going to someone, do you remember this show that had a time crystal? Or do you remember this show that was... And hours and hours of debate and discussion going about these kind of shows because we all love what we grew up with. And it's one of those things where you'd come home from school, you'd grab a drink, you'd plonk yourself down in front of the couch and you'd watch Shell's Neighborhood, or you'd watch Wombat, or you'd watch Simon Townsend's Wonderworld. So not all of them are what you would call pop culture, but a lot of them generate merchandise, and it's very hard to find some of the merchandise on some of them. So we're looking, and this is the first of the series because there's obviously too many to cover in one show, at just after school shows and collectibles that were based on them.
So as mentioned in the promo for the show, for those who saw it on Facebook and even on YouTube, Generation X, so people born primarily in the 1960s, even into the 70s to a large degree, were classed as the television generation. I just really realized this just recently, where TV has existed our entire lives. And of course, we grew up with it through our school years, both primary school and high school years. But in the primary school years, it was a case of, you go home and, as you said, you might go outside and have a bit of a play, ride your bike, or whatever, get inside and then watch TV for the rest of the evening. And of course, that's where all your favourite shows sort of came from. And of course, there was the afternoon shows as well. And you are right. You would go back to school the next day and you go, mate, did you see that? How good? And you would just talk about it as if it was the greatest thing that ever occurred. And I guess we're sort of recounting a little bit of that history. And as you mentioned, about some of the collectibles that came with these shows. And in some cases, there was hardly anything at all. But in some cases, there was some stuff. So definitely a trip down memory lane, Mr. Aaron.
Yeah, the other thing with shows like this, and we will do more of these episodes, I'm quite happy to add more audience participation. So if you watched Monkey Magic and afterwards you went outside and you hit the heads off the top of brooms, so you had sticks and then you beat the crap out of your brother and sister, send them in those stories, because when we do Monkey Magic, I'll read them out. So if you've got any memories stirring tonight as we go through these different shows, feel free just to go for it, and we'll read out some of the best ones. But don't make it a War and Peace novel either.
Yeah, exactly right. Deb has made a point. She's got a Simon Townsend's Wonder Book, Wonder World book. Is that possibly worth something now? I don't know, dude. What do you reckon?
Well, only if it's signed by Jonathan Coleman and Edith Bliss, of course.
And of course, what was the name of the dog? Oh, shit.
Woodrow.
Woodrow. Yeah, Woodrow's got to lift a Paul mark, preferably a Paul mark and not any other mark, if you know what I'm trying to say. So,
Yes.
very good stuff. Yes, Christy said Monkey Magic was creepy. I absolutely loved it with the old Tripitaka stuff. Oh, yeah, you can just. All right, so, but we're going to kick things off. There's a couple of things that are obviously going to be massive classics for fans. So let's kick it off with a bit of this. Hang on, there we go. Get some animation going. Very, very good. So it's the old goodies. Is that right, Mr. Aaron?
Yeah, we're all professionals here. One of the earliest shows I remember actually is The Goodies, and I remember in prep, so when we were 5, having a debate at school whether the theme tune to The Goodies was Goodies, Goody Goody Yum Yum, or Goodies, Goody Goody Gumdrops. And of course, I was right. It was Goody Goody Yum Yum. It is funny how these moments in history lodge in your brain and you remember them for years and years and years. And The Goodies is one of those shows that is an absolutely amazing show because it captured the imaginations of kids. And The Goodies was filmed in England as an adult show, and it was originally shown at about 10 o'clock at night. But in Australia, they cut out the swearing and they cut out some of the nudity, and they showed it as an afternoon show for kids. And of course, because it was almost like watching a grown men performing in a cartoon with crazy stunts and crazy situations, it just captured kids' imaginations. Because in the UK they didn't repeat stuff, but in Australia we got it for years and years and years. It's one of those shows that's really seeped into the culture, and everybody from my generation remembers watching The Goodies after school. Did you love The Goodies, Dags?
I watched it later on in life, not at the time, and it definitely was a show that was hard to describe to people what it was, but it definitely came under the heading of absolutely ingenious comedy. And I'm just going to deviate a little bit. So we talked about The Goodies, but people are putting their own suggestions of shows that they loved. And this is one that doesn't come to mind until someone mentions one word. So Jacqueline said Dougal, and of course that's the Magic Roundabout. It's like, oh my God. So yeah, we'll probably maybe even cover that off somewhere in our travels as well. But yeah, The Goodies was ingenious. It was such a clever concept, and yeah, very entertaining and being wacky. I don't know if you can. It's the kind of thing you could do today, but it was at the right place at the right time with the right 3 guys, and it just had winner right across the board.
Well, The Goodies was an ingenious concept because it was basically we do anything, anywhere, anytime. And each episode, there'd be a reset. There are a couple of episodes of The Goodies where they die at the end. And then they come back for new adventures in the next episode. It is really one of those shows where the format was so flexible. They could get away with anything, including giant kittens where they go up against Kitten Kong. The Goodies, some of it has aged brilliantly. It's one of those shows I watched with my son. And there's some shows I watch and he will not watch. He goes, Dad, this is crap. But The Goodies is still a show that kids can watch. And because it's a lot of visual humor, they will be able to enjoy it at that level. The Goodies was initially on the ABC, had no viewers, but then they put it on at 7. It was a hit. And it was such a big hit that it was poached by 7 and 10. And at one point, you could watch The Goodies on the ABC and switch over to Channel 10 and watch another episode of The Goodies from a different season. So it is one of those shows that went across the different networks at different time slots, and a lot of people still love it. I can never see the Earth Movers without thinking, and Twinkle was the name of Kitten Kong. Kitten Kong, the original version of that, does not exist. It was filmed, it went to air, and it was such a good episode they refilmed it and entered it into a competition, and the original version was lost. We can also can't have beef for dinner without calling it beef because of the beef fever episode. Or call out Where's Bellamy when we see rabbits. So that's the other thing about The Goodies. There's so many iconic scenes that cause catchphrases. Already, I just saw scrolling up string, everybody loves string,
Yep.
and things like that, because They were ingenious. Like I thought a lot of the time that there aren't many shows now that come out with a new catchphrase that everybody remembers. There isn't much. I Am Groot was around for a while, but I think that's kind of come and gone. But the Goodies had a lot of stuff that everybody remembers. Beans means Heens and things like that.
I just remember, like, it's the small things you remember. I love the fact that they had the bike that they would all ride together. It was the first time I saw, because you'd seen bikes with two people, but not a bike with three. And I always thought that was interesting. And there was one instance where I think it was Graham had to put on a suit, and he just put on some pants, and he just zipped the whole thing right up the middle, put the tie on, and he was just dressed, ready to go. That was brilliant.
There was a lot of stuff. It was ingenious, and the Goodies had really good comedy roots. I mean, they came up through the Cambridge Ox Footlights, which was famous, and a lot of Monty Python came from there, and other famous comedians. And you had what was really amazing about the Goodies, I think you had three people that represented three different areas of the social dynamic. So there was always someone who you recognized in the Goodies. You had the posh Tim Brooke Taylor, or you had the nerdy scientist Graham, and then you had the hippie rock and roll Bilotti. And different episodes you would identify with different characters. So it was an ingenious concept. But we could go on a whole episode about the Goodies, but we're looking at the merchandise, aren't we?
I just want to finish off with one thing to say. It was quintessentially British, and I think that's what made it work. I think it was if you try to replicate that in any other country, it just wouldn't cut the mustard. It needed English people to do it, and that was part of the charm. Some of the best comedy you get in the world comes from England, and just getting the three together the way they did, it was just an absolute winner. And it could do no wrong. And as decades later, is still loved and remembered by everybody. So,
yeah, the Goodies. Sorry, the Goodies was never actually cancelled either. It went to from BBC to London Weekend Television, where they got a much better deal, and then they were never commissioned for a second series after the first one, and they could never make more Goodies because they still owned the London Weekend Television, had the rights. Steven Spielberg actually looked into getting the rights to the Goodies to making a Goodies movie, and they couldn't do it because of the I guess the contracts they'd signed, which was something that they always regretted. And then just before Tim Brooke Taylor died, they were going to make a new series on radio, and they made a pilot with Joanna Lumley, which is quite funny. And then when Tim Brooke Taylor passed away, they said, we can't do it anymore.
As far as I'm aware, I mean, a lot of English comedies from the 70s were very, like, you couldn't show them today because they're dealing with racism and sexism and all that sort of stuff. The Betty Hill stuff, if you will. But with the Goodies, I don't recall that happening at all, but I could be quite vague. I'm sure that if you were to show all the episodes today, there's nothing classed as offensive, any of them, but I could be wrong. But
there is a lot of blackface jokes and things like that in the Goodies. It is one of those interesting things where people who find it offensive often are taking it in the wrong spirit, where they're actually mocking people who are like that. There is some racial stereotypes, but we're not going to get into those debates here.
No, we are not.
We're going to look at the merchandise. And because we're a collectible show, we're looking at a lot of these shows, and a lot of them didn't have a lot of merchandise. The Goodies did have a bit. If you were a collector and like all things Goodies, they had Radio Times covers, which is the British version of TV Week, I guess, which are quite collectible with people who collect ephemera. And some of the first stuff they released was the cast cards. And interestingly, with the Goodies cast cards, most of them seem to be signed. And I can just imagine they're in their dressing rooms and they get this big bulk of cast cards, and one of them signs them and they pass it to the next one, and the next one signs them, and then the last Goodie signs them, and they get sent out to fans. But it does show the dedication of the Goodies, which really seemed to be almost like a hands-on comedy troupe, where they weren't the actors making a show hired by the BBC. They were writing it. They were suggesting how to direct it. They were pushing the publicity on it. Bilotti was writing the music for it. And they were doing all these different things to try and make it fresh and interesting. And that's why I think the Goodies come across as so friendly. There are some actors who you probably would see in the street and feel apprehensive about talking to, but I think if you watch the Goodies, you feel like you know them. And it's a terrible thing for actors where they have no privacy, but they are some of the few actors I would have no problems going up and talking to, because the Goodies were such a big part of my growing up.
So it's a good point. It's such a successful show, yet there's so little merchandise for it. And you kind of have to hunt high and low, don't you, to find it?
You do. Over the whole time the Goodies was popular, and it ran for about 12 years, there's about 4 books. There's a goodies annual because every single show ever in Britain had an annual, and then there's some books that the goodies produced themselves, the goodies file, the book of criminal records, and the goodies disaster movie, and all of them, you can tell when they do comedy books, you often think this isn't as good as the actual comedy. These ones all had different articles and how to do stuff and different jokes and stuff, and they were very, very good books in that they were in the same spirit as the actual series. So the annual, what I heard was the annual wasn't great, and they weren't really happy about it because world distributors kind of have the same artists and the same writers, and they knock out these annuals and they're all very similar. So when it came to doing the books, they had hands-on control because they didn't want the goodies not to be funny and not to be good. And that's why these books are actually quite funny, and they're not expensive. You can still find them on eBay, but they are popular. Yeah, so we will be looking at the LP releases as well. And here we are. The goodies, it is interesting that the goodies for a couple of years were some of the biggest music artists in the UK, and it was because they had a couple of hits, and Bill Oddie wrote all of the music for the show with Barry Gibb. I think it's Barry Gibb, not one of the Bee Gees though, but it was one of the Gibbs, and they produced a lot of really unique and really catchy music. And a lot of shows, when you put the music on a best of, it's just sort of the background music, but the goodies music was so good it actually charted, and this encouraged them to do more. And as someone had said, they did the Funky Gibbon, and they actually had quite a big musical career. And it actually was one of those things where they were releasing so much music, they could have they were on top of the pops and they were touring. They actually were quite a popular musical group as well. And when you listen to the goodies episodes, what I find, if you listen to one of the best of DVD CDs, you actually can visualize what episode it's from, because the music was so well written to what the action was going to be. And the goodies had a formula where all the stuff in the studio was filmed on videotape, and then they'd have one day for location footage where they'd go out and do all this zany stuff, and Bill would often write a song for what was happening during that action scene. And they did that a lot, and it was obviously the cheap way to do it, and they knew how to produce it, but it meant that it kind of was a house style and everyone was used to the music. And then there are a couple of songs that they use a couple of times through the series for action and stuff. Now, Dags, I don't know if you remember, the goodies is one of those few shows where they kept changing the title theme. Every couple of years they'd get a new one, and it is one of those things where none of them are worse. They're all actually quite good.
You picked a good time to say that, because Jacqueline has come up with what would be classed as fighting words. It's not as good as the music by the Wombles. Oh, cop that. Bit of wombling free is going to smack down the goodies every day of the week, according to Jacqueline.
Well, Jacqueline, that was actually a big rivalry. And in one of the episodes, The Puppet Government, they actually get the Wombles on and they beat the crap out of them. And it is one of those things where there was a rivalry between the Beatles and the Wombles, and it was in the music charts as well. And they would often reflect things in the show that was happening in real life. So you might recall where Bill Oddie has Orinoco Womble in a headlock and is beating the crap out of him. And that is because there was a rivalry in the charts and they wrote it into the show. And how dare you? I actually think the goodies music was a lot better.
Yeah, I know. There you go. Endless hours of debates that have spanned decades. So, yeah, very cool.
The goodies were in comics. They didn't really have their own comic books themselves, but they were in Core, which is one of those sort of British comics like Whizzer and Chips and Whoopi and all of that. And there's a couple of nice covers and a couple of good comics. And again, the goodies actually put input into the stories because they like to have control over their images. One of the interesting things with the goodies, I've spoken about it, is they actually went out and sold their own merchandise. So in an episode of the goodies, you can see Graham Garden is reading an issue of Core, and that has a giant cat on the cover, which is kind of cool. They incorporated that in. And then you can see in that black and white picture, the goodies have actually got the goodies file and they're reading it and fooling around as well. And a lot of artists, when it comes to advertising their product, they have to be paid more or they don't want to do it. But the goodies were actually quite good in getting out there and being musicians to promote the show, and then going to signings and really incorporating all the different areas of showbiz. It really does seem like because they grew up with the footlights and performing live, they were used to taking control of their careers and doing everything themselves because they knew the BBC wasn't going to do it.
It'll probably come under the heading. The three guys might come across as being, buffoons and skylarking and all the rest of it, but all deep down, the three of them would have been really dialed into knowing exactly what the audience wanted, how to produce it, how to market it, how to sell it, and it's a formula that when you get that combination together, you think it's simple, but it's not. It's really complicated, and that's what makes it work. So,
Well,
fantastic.
Bill Oddie and Graham Garden wrote most of the goodies, and Tim Brooke Taylor would come in and give them ideas once in a while, but they basically tried to keep him away from the scripts because that's kind of how it worked the best, and it obviously worked really well, and they were good friends in real life too. Now, the last of what I call classic goodies merchandise is the videos. I haven't included the DVDs and Blu-rays because it'll go on forever, but the goodies were a hit on video, and they released a couple. The Goodies and the Beanstalk is a movie length one where I guess it's more like an hour, and a couple of the other episodes that didn't get repeated so much on TV would be released on home video, and they released them in the ABC shop, and when they came out, they were one of the first things I bought when I had a video player because the Goodies was one of my favorite shows growing up. So if you collect the Goodies, you can kind of collect a bookshelf full of stuff, and it's a nice collection of nostalgia and videos and DVDs, books and some posters and some other bits and pieces. But it is one of those shows that even if you don't like it, if you grew up through the 70s and 80s, you would remember watching it in your childhood.
And it had a massive fan following as well.
Now, here's another one that I'd be very interested to remember to know if anyone remembers who's watching, and it was Fatty and George and the Time Crystal, and it was recorded in 1979 by Tasmanian Film Association. It was one of the very first things they ever made. It was incredibly popular. It was repeated a couple of times on the ABC, and I remember as a kid absolutely loving this show. It was a science fiction, so there weren't a lot of Australian science fictions, and it was basically about these kids whose dad was a professor, and he invented a time crystal, and the time crystal could freeze time, and only the people who were holding it when they froze time could move around, and everyone else was paused. And it was just a video effect where everyone was paused and the screen went sepia. And this is one of those forgotten shows that I remember everybody watching and everybody loving because it had science fiction, it had BMX bikes, it had the Slasher Gang and Maggot who were like the bullies, it had Phil and Nancy who were stealing the time crystal so they could use it for crime, and it had these kids that were trying to free their father who had been put in stasis in a parallel dimension when he turned the time crystal on for the first time. And if you were a fan of it, you'll be very happy to know there's not going to be a lot of merchandise that you're going to pay a lot for, because I could only find 2 items. There's a DVD release that was released by Tasmania Television due to popular demand, and there is a flyer advertising the show to potential networks overseas, and that's pretty much it. Do you remember Fatty and George?
Nah, although funny enough, he couldn't release it today because people would take offense at the word fatty, but it's like Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids and all that sort of stuff. It's just some titles, yes, just aren't worth the effort.
Well, there you go. So that's just the only slide for Fatty and George. And I did hope that it would trigger someone's memories, but obviously not. It's just one that's beloved by me.
No, they're all too busy looking up how to find some goodies episodes. Now, funny enough, when we first started this segment, right, early on, Jacqueline said this, Catweazle was glorious. Well, as it turns out, Catweazle's next.
Yes, so we're looking at Catweazle, and it is one of those shows, again, that was probably more popular in Australia due to it being repeated over and over on the ABC than it was in England. I mean, this was filmed in the late 60s, 69 and 70, and shown in 70, 71, and then that was it. And we got it, I remember, all through the late 70s and all through the early 80s, and after school and in the school holidays I'd have discussions at school and we'd be quoting Catweazle, and it was an amazing story. And it's one of those shows that is timeless because it is about time travel and the the story basically is a wizard from 11th century London trying to escape the Normans and the Saxons, uses a spell to fly that has never worked, and he jumps, but he jumps through time and winds up in the 60s, and then it's his fish out of water story as he tries to find his way back, dealing with electrickery and all these other things that are in the modern world, and it is a amazing show.
Yeah, it works on that view that someone from couple hundred years ago sees modern day technology and they think it's all like it's magic and it's all fantasy and all this sort of thing. Which of course would be the case if we were to see technology 300 years from now, things that haven't been invented yet, and you're thinking probably the same thing. But yeah, very, very clever. And of course, he's got to stay hidden away from everybody. So, I think he befriends a kid and all the rest of it. So, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So it ran for 2 series, and the best thing I thought about Catweazle, it was magical because he was a magician, and magic actually worked. In that 90% of the time it didn't work for him, but sometimes it would work, and he could hypnotize people. And then he ever still yes, and you know what? When you hear someone call it electrickery, it's that group knowledge of knowing that you know where it's from, and they were a fan of it as well. And there are lots of things. There's Castle Sabarak and his toad, his familiar Torchwood, and things like that. And a lot of the sayings that he would come out with, and the different spells. And all the spells were apparently based on real spell books and real black magic. So I added that level of reality to it for those people who are interested in that kind of thing. But it still is a magical show, and because I was doing the slides for this, I've got to say I did put the DVD in and watch the first 6 episodes again, and it still holds up really well while you're doing slides for Rip It Off the Card, watching Catweazle in the background. There was a little bit of merchandise for Catweazle as well. So for a show that ran for 2 years, there was 3 different annuals. It starred Charles Bug Tingwell, of course, a legendary Australian actor, of course, best known for the Piss Sweet Kids on the D Generation. But he also starred in The Avengers and a lot of other British shows as well. There's the Catweazle cast card signed by Jeffrey Bowden, who is a legendary British actor who's been in a lot of things. Interestingly, he was the Crowman on Wurzel Gummidge, another show we might look at down the track. And he was one of these actors that sold the performance, and then after the show was happy to support the show and sign autographs, and kind of loved it for the rest of his life. Did you know that this was made by guys who did Funny, by the guy who did Funny Company? I didn't know that. Did you know it was huge in Germany, and last year they made a feature film, Catweazle, which was based on the series. And I haven't watched it because I can't find one that's got English subtitles or has been dubbed over. But it actually looks really good, and really in the spirit of the original, just modernized, I guess, because he comes through to current times, but very similar to the original. So there was a bit of Catweazle merchandise. We've looked at the annuals. There were some books and stuff as well.
So this one I didn't. I was surprised to see this. So I mean, a lot of TV shows and movies had trading cards at the time. Some shows didn't get them at all. And if you're obviously a big show, you definitely got them. But I'm surprised that Catweazle actually got trading cards.
It got 2 sets of trading cards, and they're quite rare to get, and quite unbelievably, or maybe not unbelievably, because I was researching this show. The one on the right there, the blue set, which was given away, I think, as Weet-Bix premiums, is incredibly hard to get. And I found those pictures on an American auction for $20, so I bought them. So I've been looking for those cards for years, and they never ever turn up, and I found them because I was researching pictures for this show. The ones on the left are a different set that were more like the traditional trading cards where you buy a packet and open them. The ones on the left have like drawings as pictures. The ones on the right are photographs. So there's Catweazle trading cards. They are incredibly hard to find, though.
Rusky Waves has confirmed he was referring to something else when he's talking about the Funny Company. So yeah, you just disregard that entire comment. So he was talking to Jeffro about Roger Ramjet.
Oh, okay. So
yes.
No, that was one that threw me as well. So yeah, there were Catweazle trading cards, and they're very hard to get. But that's some of the images of the different sets that they released. They were back in the early 70s.
It's very funny. Catweazle could remake. It could be very interesting dealing with modern times. So if you kept the guy from the original, his time period, whether it even be 300 years ago, and you move him to the 21st century, that'd be way more trippier than, say, the 1960s. So Yeah, what was considered magic and fantasy back in the 60s would be really spaced out by today's standards. But of course, you've got to introduce all the other aspects of current life as well. So the concept could work quite well. But I mean, it's a bit of a used trope now about having time travelers from the past coming into the current time. So it's not like it hasn't been there and done that. Whereas back in the 60s, it might have been a bit of a novelty and something
Yeah.
new. Today, it's probably like, yeah, seen it all before. So that would be the only downside. Yeah.
So here we have some of the German items, and this is what really surprised me. Even back in the 60s and 70s, Catweazle apparently was huge in Germany, where they
Mm.
released more books in Germany about Catweazle than they did actually in the UK. So if you were collecting Catweazle, there is that potential to like track down international stuff and different versions in different languages of some of the stories. Now, what's interesting about this is often you will get paperback books that are translated into different languages, and Catweazle did release a couple of very popular books. There were the paperbacks of the 2 series of the show. Germany actually released more merchandise than the UK, so they did translations of the books, then they released their own versions of the books, and then they released kids' books and kids' tapes and kids' records and things like that. So it is quite strange for a British show to break so big internationally in different markets.
And that would have been West Germany as well, I'm assuming, not East Germany, because back then the Germanys were separated. It's not uncommon for a series to be produced, and it actually has far more success in another country than it does in its home country. And in some movies, some shows, and some movies, you can kind of get it and go, I can understand why this country here, like Japan, was really, really big into Mad Max. And you go, I can kind of get that, right, because of the car culture and whatever else. But some shows like Catweazle, you go, what is it about Catweazle that the Germans would have hooked into? But obviously they did, and maybe it was just the right formula for that sort of like those people at that time. So yeah,
Catweazle versus the Third Reich.
yes, indeedy doody didy. Very, very cool.
Yeah. And Catweazle was released on video in the 90s, and I found a flyer there that would have been quite amazing. You had Jeffrey Balden and Robin Davies, who was Carrot in the first series, actually went to Forbidden Planet and was signing Catweazle videos, which would be quite surreal, wouldn't it, to see Catweazle and Carrot all grown up and go along and get them signed. But I tell you what, I would have loved to have done that and met them. That would have been a fantastic experience.
Very, very cool. Is Forbidden Planet still around?
It is. It is one of those shops that's survived. It's split in two, and there's Forbidden Planet and Forbidden Planet International, which are the same name but the same company, but split off 20 years ago, and they're still both going strong.
Well done. Good stuff. Nerds of the world unite.
And then Catweazle was big in other media as well. So we have the Catweazle color press out book, which is coloring and pressing out different images. And he was in Look In Annual and had comics. And one of these amazing Malaways on the right there was the Catweazle poster. So there were magazines. He was popular enough that there were magazines that advertised a Catweazle poster, and you could send away for that poster down the bottom. Catweazle merchandise is incredibly hard to find. There's a couple of books there that until I did the research for this episode, I did not know existed. So it could be challenging to get some of these things because it is a franchise that lived for 2 years in the UK, produced a lot of books for kids that often get, trashed by kids and not looked after, and then went away. So anything in nice condition is hidden away in someone's collection or unknown on a bookshelf somewhere and doesn't turn up on the market. So although I'd love to collect Catweazle stuff, good luck in Australia. None of this stuff was released here, and you really didn't see a lot of it.
Yeah, a lot of it would be classed as a curiosity more than anything else. You say, I got all these items from way back when. A lot of people go, that's awesome that you've got them, but they wouldn't necessarily have a lot of value or get a lot of interest from a lot of people besides going, I remember watching that, but I don't actually have a desire to own the books or the annuals or the cards. But either way, as you said, it's good on them for doing it, and it does go to show that there was some stuff produced. Now, we're going to go completely different country, different time zone, and a completely different style of show. And believe it or not, it's good old Shell's Neighborhood.
Yeah, so this is another one that so many people talk about and have good memories about, and there's really not a lot online or a lot of merchandise to do with it. But this was a show that ran for quite a few years. It had Shirley Strawn, who was most famous for Skyhooks. And I do remember at the time being shocked that he turned up hosting a kids show, but probably I was young enough to get over it. And probably quite a few Skyhooks fans weren't. And so when he is releasing kids albums singing about Shirl's neighborhood, they're probably like, but when are Skyhooks reforming and going to release a new album as well? Did you grow up with Shirl's neighborhood, Dags?
I saw bits of it. I'm just going to go back a bit. We're talking about some of the collectible things. And I agree with Jeffro. Yeah, the annuals would probably have a bit of demand. Annuals, as we've discussed before, do have a bit of a collectible pulling power, and the Catweazle one's probably in that mix as well. Yes, so I did see bits and pieces of it. I didn't watch it on a regular basis, but I, like you, were thinking, why is the lead singer of a rock band hosting a kids show? That's his own version of a horror movie, but it was a very, very popular series, and yeah, it's the funny thing about shows like this, and Sesame Street is very, very similar. When as a kid you watch these things, you go, "Oh, that's like in this case, Shirl's neighborhood. What do I have to do to move into that neighborhood and be a part of this gang?" Because in your brain you're thinking this is all for real, and they're showing houses and streets and front yards and whatever, and it's all in studio. But you think, what would it take to get there? You just dream of being a part of it all and how fantastic it would be. So I think that was one of the appealing things about the show, actually. So yeah,
whether it was Shirl's Neighborhood or Alexander Bunyip's Billabong, there was a lot of places in kids' TV which a young kid's imagination would take them to, and was a safe place. Shirl's Neighborhood.
You just love me because I'm good in the neighborhood. You're an idiot.
Shirl's Neighborhood was good because, a bit like the Goodies, it had so many different characters. Everyone could identify with someone on it. So if you were a bit cantankerous, there was Claude the Crow. If you were a lovable, huggable guy, there was Old Possum. And then you had Stanley the Snake and all the other characters. You had Shirl and you had Norm the Kangaroo, who, was always good for a hug. And then you had Lizzie, who was the neighborhood girl that would come around and hang out in the treehouse. And Shirl's Neighborhood, it was just an interesting way to frame, I guess, a magazine show where they would have different segments and different things and, some storylines or some comedy. The one that used to get me as a kid, and they could not do this now because of, I guess, occupational health and safety. I don't know how you'd get away with it. Claude the Crow collected used Band-Aids. And even I, as a kid, after a manky Band-Aid fell off my knee and had all the blood stains and pus stains on it, I sent it into Claude the Crow, and he would have jars of manky Band-Aids turn up. Can you imagine being the production assistant that has to do Claude's fan mail and what crazy stuff would turn up being sent to that crow? And the more mankier it was, the more likely it was to be on TV.
Very, very good. Gavin said Shirley wanted to be carpentry segment of Better Homes and Gardens. Yeah, he went down the Harrison Ford route because he was actually a carpenter by trade. So, which is particularly good stuff. And just on the slides, getting back to the merchandise.
So it's not a surprise that, I guess, because Shirley Strawn was into pop, that they did release quite a few songs. So there's Norm's Neighborhood Concerts, G'day Neighbor, which had Shirl's Neighborhood, which actually charted on. And then you've got the other singles there and albums, and they're on the festival label. Again, Shirl's Neighborhood is one of those shows there really wasn't a lot of merchandise produced for it. For something that was so big and such a big part of people's childhoods, there's a couple of soft toys. The Norm the Kangaroo actually goes for hundreds of dollars if you get them on eBay. They're quite hard to find. I do remember them being soft toys of Claude the Crow, and I couldn't really find any good examples of them. And I do remember a soft toy of Stanley the Snake, and I couldn't find anything of that, but that could just be a suppressed childhood memory as well. So who knows on that one. And then there's a Claude the Crow t-shirt there with him on a bike. I don't remember Claude riding a bike at all, but it is one of those shows that was very, very, I guess, a comfort show. You'd come home, I was very young in primary school, and it was on, and sit down and go to Shirl's Neighborhood. So that's a big part of a lot of Australians' memories from growing up.
So Jeffro said Shirl ironically never actually sang on the records. I agree with you that the Norm the Kangaroo soft toys would be very popular, actually. I mean, not from a value point of view, but people looking at them and going, oh my God, that's absolutely spectacular. Like in your store at the moment, you've got a Humphrey Bear sitting there at the moment. And people walk in and go, oh my God, there's a Humphrey Bear. So if you had the Norm the Kangaroo, people go, oh yeah, I remember that. I mean, they may not have even remember seeing the toy, but they'd remember the character. And that would bring back a lot of good memories for a lot of people. So, Very, very cool. So that's the Shul's neighbourhood side of things. And funnily enough, we touched on this topic earlier in the evening, and now we're going to touch on it again. Because don't worry about, as I say, it's in America, there's always, what was it? Something about the future is always tomorrow because, no, it's right. I'm just going to move on because it's time for this. I finally remember the gag. They say the world can't end today because somewhere else in the world it's already tomorrow. And of course, that's what Americans think of us. Got there in the end. Very, very good. Hang on, we've got a question here. It's a bit of a long one. I haven't read this yet, so I'll have to have a look from Jacqueline. Question, if I may. Of course you can. We encourage questions here. Two of you talk about what you have collected as adults, and I'm wondering if you ever talk about what you collected as children. I think would make a wonderful show. Well, Aaron's is easy, Docky Who stuff. And
Yes.
mine is even easier, nothing.
Basically, I collected everything I could as a child, and I never stopped until as an adult. And now I have more finance to buy what I couldn't buy when I was a child. But I do mainly collect Doctor Who stuff now because you just can't collect everything.
Yeah, I didn't have the finances to collect anything. I bought a few Star Wars things when I was a kid, but clearly that wasn't. It wasn't until I started working at a full-time job in the mid-'80s and I had a disposable income, then the world changed dramatically. But prior to that, no, not much. But I mean, from my perspective, when the Star Wars came out, the first 12 action figures, bought those, thinking that's it. There's only 12 in the world. We're done. And then also Series 2, Series 3, and then new movies, and it just went crazy after that. And that's when I had to give up.
Yeah.
But you are right. It would make for an interesting show. Yeah, if we could do it easy, do a show just on Aaron's history alone, it would be very, very cool. And you are right, Gavin. It helped to have money. Yes, indeedy, duty, diary. Well, that was quick. So, sorry. As kids, things are different as to when you're an adult. If you talk about adulthood, well, that's a completely different story. But I've had an entire documentary made about my collecting days. But yes, good stuff. Very good. But anyway, we certainly encourage questions. Sorry, dude, you're going to say something?
No, I was just going to say I got into dealing merchandise because I wanted to buy more as a kid, and the only way I could do it was buy and sell other stuff that I didn't want to keep to fund the actual stuff that I did want to keep. And look what happens, you end up with a shop.
Yeah, so for everybody out there, so for Jacqueline, Aaron is effectively what you class as a professional dealer and a professional trader. So unlike most people who just buy things and keep things, he buys and sells and buys and sells, and that's his bread and butter, has been for decades. So he doesn't fit into the same mold as most of the people that we know who just collect, buy, and keep. So he's the opposite of that. So there you go.
As dogs would say, I'm a capitalist dog.
A capitalist dog? I would never say that, dude.
So Dags and I have a very similar history of fandom. We went to all the same events and hung out with the same people, but Dags was often running conventions and I was often in the hucksters or dealers room. So that's how we know each other.
Yeah, that's the reason why in this show, Aaron talks about all the collectibles and I just sit here pushing the buttons, which I'm about to push right now because it's now time for the Tomorrow People, Mr. Aaron.
So the Tomorrow People was another show like Doctor Who for me that always seemed to be on. This was on Channel 7 at different times of the day, but after school, I remember coming home and hanging out for episodes of the Tomorrow People because it was one of my favorite shows growing up. And what Dags was talking about with me earlier is there was monsters in the Tomorrow People, and it often wasn't just people dressed up. It was crazy monsters. As a kid, they looked fantastic. As an adult, you realize they were utter crap, and there was no budget in this at all. It was often stuff that was like glued on and drawn on and couldn't move. And Lost in Space, the monsters looked at least scary and adult, even if they didn't move. In the Tomorrow People, they were just ridiculous, where you would get like someone dressed as someone from the Ku Klux Klan, a robot that was obviously made out of, glued together cardboard and stuff like that. And it was very variable.
I mean, it's kind of funny. The Tomorrow People was like the earliest iteration, if you will, of X-Men and or heroes. We get people who have evolved and now have these special powers. But of course, you've got somebody with special powers, like, psychics or whatever. You've got to have adversaries that are equal to them. And that's where all the monsters and the aliens and all that sort of rubbish comes from. And otherwise, you can't have a good guy who's too strong and there's no bad guy that who can challenge them. So unfortunately, that's the downside to a great idea. So I guess that's...
The Tomorrow People the Tomorrow People was big on ideas but low on budget, and they
Yeah.
are fun. They are fun to watch. And if you ever want to watch one of the best DVD commentaries, if you can find the original series 1 and 2 of the Tomorrow People, where they put them in the booth to record the commentary and give them way too much wine, and the stuff that comes out, they had to ban the commentary and recall the DVDs because no one listened to it before they issued it. There you go. So me and Russell are on the same wavelength there. They are quite happy to mock what they were doing and mock the acting and mock what was on them, and that really makes for almost a Mystery Science 3000 viewing of the Tomorrow People, where you can watch it as a nostalgic memory, and then you can watch it with the actors who've grown up and realized how horrible this show actually was.
Yeah, that's the hard thing about a lot of shows and productions. People put up with it at the time because they're contracted to do what they've got to do. And sometimes they know what they're producing is rubbish. And then decades later, they get a chance to just blurt it all out and say, well, we did what we had to do. We met the requirements, fulfilled the production schedules, got it out there, but in the end, weren't happy with the result. And of course, for a lot of people in the media industry, sometimes they got no idea what is happening on the other side of the fencing regarding the production. They're not seeing. And of course, until they see the final version, they go, holy shit, I didn't realize it was going to be as bad as that. Monster shows are classics where they stick in the special effects after the fact. And if you've done the best acting you possibly could, but the special effects of the monster or the alien, which was filmed separately, looks absolutely shit, you're going to be sitting there going, well, that's just killed me. I'm embarrassed to be a part of it. Well, so unfortunately, it happens that way.
When you say as well, the best acting you could possibly do, Tomorrow People is notorious. It was a good break for young actors, but a lot of them were crap, really crap, to the point where the Tomorrow People would break out, which is how you become a tomorrow person, and then they would suddenly be whisked off away to another planet because the actor just did not work out. And this happened again and again, and it's one of the things that probably dragged it down, where you've got the main tomorrow person, John, who is through the whole series, and there was a couple of good Tomorrow People, Stephen and Elizabeth, who made it through quite a lot, but they would introduce new Tomorrow People each story or each season, and they were crap actor after crap actor after crap actor. Tomorrow People was good. It did, before its time, have a very diverse cast with people of color and Asians and characters that were gypsies and things like that, but it was really let down by the production through all levels.
Yeah, you do wonder if any of those actors who came and went and sort of end up becoming mega superstars decades later, and they just go, I was involved with the show way back then, but let's not talk about that. It's like people who start off on Neighbours and end up becoming superstars. There's a long list of those. But from the merchandising point of view, Mr. Aaron,
okay, I was going to say it's funny because Christian Smith from Neighbours end up on the reboot of the Tomorrow People, but we're not going to go there. The Tomorrow People,
Neighbours, and I've ended up here. So,
oh, poor Dags, you had the worst career move of them all.
Indeed.
The Tomorrow People did bring out books and paperbacks that were released in Australia. You did used to find these around in book exchanges, and I've had them and read them, and I thought they were quite good. As a kid, the Tomorrow People books I enjoyed as much as I did the Doctor Who books. I don't have them anymore, and I haven't seen them around for ages because obviously they're not as common now as they were in the 80s, and they're all in people's collections. There was only one Tomorrow People annual, which was quite weird for something that ran for 12 years. They usually pushed out annuals. You run it for 1 year and 4 annuals come out for some stuff, but the Tomorrow People only had the one annual, and it is one of the annuals that was quite popular here. I think the Tomorrow People was one of those shows that was repeated enough in the afternoons in Australia that there was quite a fan base, where it might have only been shown once here. I have seen the first couple of episodes, The Slaves of Jedekiah and the Medusa Strain, over and over and over as a kid, because they just used to whack them on after school or before school and all over the place. It's funny too, because ITV had cheap Tomorrow People and cheap TP and mega expensive Space 1999, and they were both in Look-In. Do you know what? In comic book form, any science fiction can look fantastic because there's no budget apart from the artist's imagination.
And speaking of Look-In,
here we go. Tomorrow People actually had more covers than Space 1999. And they had quite a good-looking comic. You can see it is that era of British comics that I really love the artwork from. They were very, very popular. You can see, I think it's because Tomorrow People did last a long time. Every time they needed, an interesting cover for Look-In, or they could wheel out pictures of the Tomorrow People and some weird aliens or whatever. The comic I can't really remember reading. Like a lot of other shows from the time, they have had companies that have put like compendiums and annuals together and republished it. The Tomorrow People, I don't remember reading because Look In wasn't released in Australia, and the Tomorrow People comics weren't reissued in any other books. So they look fantastic, but I have no idea if they were any good.
Yeah, I do like the logo, I've got to say. I think that's actually quite futuristic and kind of groovy. So, yeah.
It was, and the Tomorrow People kept the same opening titles with different elements through the whole series, and they were quite good. And the titles were, the music was written by Dudley Simpson, who was an
Yeah.
Australian who'd worked in the UK as well. And you can see not only was the comics in Look In, but they had pin-ups and articles and different stories about the Tomorrow People. They even had crosswords and things like that. And each time there was a new Tomorrow People person introduced, they would have interviews with them and hype it up. So it was a show that was looked on as being quite high profile. I did think it was funny that brown cover one in the middle there had the two bikies as the cover for the Look In, and I was just like, that's just crazy. They were bad acting henchmen for the villains, and they got their own cover in Look In, which must be one of the weirder Look In magazines ever. But you had articles, the Tomorrow People are back, and interviews with them and stuff like that. So there is a bit of Tomorrow People stuff to collect if you loved the Tomorrow People. And it was released by Thames Television. Now, if you see that image in the middle, you can hear that image, can't you, Dags? You must be able to. Everybody knows Thames Television because there was so many good shows for kids produced by it. And I think the majority of them were shipped over to Australia, and we saw them here. So every episode of the Tomorrow People started with the Thames Television ident. And I tell you what, if they were repeated now, I bet it would be cut out because they just wouldn't have time for it. But it's such an iconic theme. Even as a kid, if I heard that theme, I would come in and watch what was on because I knew I was going to see some quality kids television. The Tomorrow People was released on video and DVD, and the earlier videos I've put in the background, and they kind of didn't release the entire series on video. It kind of phased over to DVD. And as I said, if you can find the earlier DVDs with the unedited commentaries, they're comedy gold. They're absolutely worth listening to. And the Thames Television logo imprinted onto a lot of people's kids with their favorite shows. And there are so many different shows that had it.
Or if you're a kid like me, it was Thames. Never understood what Thames was, but there you go. All right, we've got one more to get through. We have to go through it relatively quickly, but see who remembers this.
Ready, steady, are you set for Metal Mickey?
Yes, before the days of R2D2 and C3PO, or there it was, or thereabouts. It might have been after this, actually. So, droids in the household, Mr. Aaron.
Metal Mickey, and Metal Mickey was quite a good droid. And I watched again for this show. I hadn't watched it in probably 20 years, and I cannot believe some of the stuff they got away with in Metal Mickey. Metal Mickey was a bit of a ladies' man, and often come out with a comment that probably wouldn't get on a kids show today. Metal Mickey was actually a TV host for a series earlier than Metal Mickey, kind of a kids magazine program where he would do interviews and little segments. And someone saw Metal Mickey and said, you know what? He's better than the show. He will give him his own show. So Metal Mickey came out and went for 4 seasons. And I'm surprised there wasn't a lot of merchandise for Metal Mickey, including they never made a Metal Mickey figure or robot or anything like that. They made something close that we'll have a look at. But I would have been disappointed as a fan that I couldn't get a remote control Metal Mickey, or at least one that spoke. And I love how he spoke because he sounded a bit like a Cylon from Battlestar Galactica, and that's always a good thing.
Yeah, it's the kind of the gimmicky thing where you got one character who's completely different to everybody else, a bit like Elf, for example. So it's just sort of like, and that's part of the gag. The outsider who's trying to fit his way into the modern world, and of course that ends up being quite humorous. But from a collectible point of view, we've got some of this.
There was, again, for something that ran 4 years, I did think there would be more merchandise. Obviously, I don't think any of it came to Australia. I don't remember any of the annuals here. Jethro might be able to fix me on that one because I know he collects the TV annuals. But there were 4 Metal Mickey annuals. All of them are really colourful and really sort of got that 80s vibe where everything was, pop and Top of the Pops and Countdown and that kind of thing. And Metal Mickey, they they obviously didn't have much to do with the character because a lot of the photos and illustrations are from the same couple of stills they've obviously used over and over. There was a Metal Mickey comic which I couldn't find any information on. I found one magazine which was TV Tops that ran it, and I could find one page of the comic online, but there wasn't much information on Metal Mickey. And I think it is one of those programs that a lot of people remember and have really fond memories of growing up, but there's really not a lot of information about it online. It is one of those sort of forgotten shows.
Yeah, actually, Jeffro said he does have one annual, and there's a few people who'll be watching this show tonight who don't actually remember this show at all. So probably not surprising that it went by the wayside.
So Metal Mickey did have a figure of sorts released, and it was a ceramic money box. So that's it in the middle there. I have never seen it, and I would love to get one of those. I think that's a fantastic 80s icon from something that you just never see. Unfortunately, I looked around and there was none for sale on eBay and none for sale on any of the other sites I choose. So probably I'll forget about it in a week or two. Either side of that, there's Metal Mickey posters. So it was popular enough that you could go down to your local poster rack and find your Metal Mickey poster if you lived in the UK. And they kind of have that sort of 80s look as well, which I really love the aesthetics too. But I would be interesting if anything came to Australia. Comedy legend Irene Handel was in it, and Metal Mickey and her granny were like, I guess, a comedy duo a lot of the time. And she actually came out with some quite rude stuff for the time slot as well. It was always cut off and it was always implied, but you're like, oh, this was quite edgy for a kid show. It was sort of like that thing where the young ones had come out, so they were pushing the bounds of comedy, and they obviously go, well, we can't do the young ones for a kid's time slot, but we can have these really bizarre situations and bizarre things happen that really fits into that sort of comedy time slot of the young ones, and that time from the 80s where they were sort of redefining comedy and a whole new generation were coming up doing different things.
Yeah, well, when you're dealing with a human character with a non-human character, you can say a whole lot of stuff and get away with it. So, and of course, that's part of the whole gag and what makes the sort of the jokes work. So, yeah.
The one thing I did not know is Metal Mickey was a rock star and had albums that performed quite well and charted. Now, there is a board game there. I could only find the one picture of the board game. I never knew there was a board game, and I don't know how easy it is to get. I bet it'd be really hard to find. But he released quite a few studio albums and quite a few singles, and some of them actually charted. The one I like the best there is the parody of the E.T. Poster where you've got Metal Mickey and he's touching the boy's finger like E.T. is touching the finger as well. And I just thought that was kind of genius. And E.T. would have come out and they go, do you know what? We can do this and we can do a parody of it. Metal Mickey, I listened to some of the music. It ain't good. it's that total auto-tuned versions where even something like the Chickmunks might have a bit of comedy appeal to it or some appeal to younger kids. This is really flat music, really, really bad. I absolutely loved it. If you go to YouTube and find some of it, it's really funny. That's so bad, it's good kind of way.
I love the fact that it says here, cast album, which is music, TV for radio. So they're covering just about everything there. So love it. And this is our last image. And
I think this must be the rarest item ever. Apparently only one of these has turned up. A Metal Mickey lunchbox, and it's not even one of the metal ones. We're in the 80s, kids, and it's a plastic lunchbox. And the people who found this don't know if it came with a thermos or not, but that is an absolutely amazing piece of 80s pop culture right there. The first 2 seasons of Metal Mickey have been released on DVD. Apparently they didn't do so well, so they stopped there, and you can't even get the whole series on DVD if you're a fan. It was never released on video, and that's probably why it's one of those forgotten but beloved shows from the 80s that everyone remembers, but you just don't see much of it anymore.
And as Metal Mickey would often say, boogie boogie, is that right?
Yeah, boogie, almost like Twiggy from Buck Rogers, really.
Yeah,
a lot of
bitty bitty bitty. Yeah, exactly
boogie.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Fantastic. How about it? It's just gone right on 10 o'clock. So that actually brings to the end of our first part of TV collectibles for TV shows that we used to watch after school, Mr. Aaron.
Yep. So if you've enjoyed this and there's any shows, obscure or popular, let us know your memories of them, and maybe we'll use them in a future episode. So I'm hope everyone enjoyed that and it brought back some memories. Maybe in the bottom of your cupboard, like Jeffro, you've got a Metal Mickey annual or something like that, and you'll get it out and have a look. Or maybe you'll be inspired to go down memory lane and check out some of the shows you used to watch growing up and get that warm feeling from childhood school holidays past.
Very, very
I know
good.
that's what you're going to do, Dags. You're going to pop on Catweazle straight away, aren't you?
Mate, I can't get there fast enough. More. Well, Mr. Gavin, you're just going to have to wait a little while for that, possibly even next week. So don't forget, fans out there, if you want to come to the dinner on the 17th of December, let Aaron and myself know. If you don't have contact with either of us, just contact him at the store. Look up Aaron's Collectables on the Facebook page and just find your way through there. Rip it off the card. Supporters and fans, if there are some out there, if anybody still loves us, come along and enjoy a wonderful night. And we'll advertise this again in the following weeks as well. Absolutely fantastic. All right, Mr. Aaron, as always, if you do find ultra rare collectibles for TV shows that you used to watch after school in your possession, make sure you keep them mint in box, Mr. Aaron.
Or you could probably be like me and rip them off the card.
Don't do that. All right, guys, leave it to it. We'll see you next week. Have a good one.
Have a good night, guys.